Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto hates Konoha for treating him like outsider part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. The city of Konoha was no longer the sun-drenched sanctuary of legends. In the year 2026, it had transformed into a sprawling, suffocating megalopolis where the skyline was a jagged teeth of glass and steel, biting into a sky permanently bruised by industrial smog and the flickering neon of 1,000 advertisements. Below the gleaming penthouses of the elite lay the roots, a labyrinth of rain-slicked alleyways and steam-venting sublevels where the law was merely a suggestion and survival was the only currency. While the world looked at Konoha as a beacon of technological advancement, a darker pulse beat beneath its surface. The crime rate hadn't just risen, it had evolved. It was no longer about simple muggings or street fights. The new era of criminality was sophisticated, silent, and systemic. High-end cybertheft, the distribution of experimental stimulants, and a burgeoning black market for restricted military-grade tech had turned the city into a chessboard for invisible players. In the slums of the Uchiha district, the red and blue lights of police cruisers were as common as street lamps, reflecting off puddles stained with oil and blood. The sirens provided a constant, dissonant soundtrack to a city that never truly slept, only drifted into a fitful, feverish trance. The police force, the Konoha Military Police Force, KMPF, fought a losing battle against the rising tide of the syndicate, a nameless entity that seemed to have its fingers in every legislative pocket and corporate boardroom. The most pressing concern for the KMPF wasn't the street-level chaos, but the corruption of the future. Reports had begun to surface of a massive smuggling ring operating out of the most prestigious institution in the country, Konoha University. It wasn't just contraband, it was the dust, a new synthetic substance that enhanced cognitive abilities at the cost of long-term neural degradation. It was spreading through the student body like a wildfire, and the source remained frustratingly elusive. High above the grime, in the reinforced ivory tower of the KMPF headquarters, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of old parchment and expensive tobacco. This was the office of Chief Commissioner Jiraiya. Jiraiya was a man who commanded respect without uttering a single word. Though his hair was a shock of unruly white, his eyes held the sharp, predatory intelligence of a man who had seen the worst of humanity and outlived it. He wasn't just a bureaucrat. He was a living legend, a former deep-cover operative who had dismantled cartels across 3 continents before taking the helm of the city's defense. His desk was a chaotic mountain of classified folders, half-empty ink bottles, and a singular, framed photo of his former pupils. A rhythmic, sharp knock echoed through the heavy oak door. Jiraiya didn't look up from the report he was reading. "Come in, Kakashi." Jiraiya's voice was a low rumble, like distant thunder. "You're 3 minutes late. I assume you were helping an elderly lady with her groceries again?" The door creaked open, and Kakashi Hatake stepped inside. Even in the presence of the commissioner, Kakashi maintained his trademark air of detached calm. His silver hair was swept to the side, and his face was partially obscured by a dark mask, a habit from his days in the special tactical units. He held a slim electronic tablet in his hand, his gaze focused on the man behind the desk. "Traffic was particularly chaotic near the university district, Commissioner," Kakashi replied smoothly, closing the door behind him. "The students are restless." Jiraiya sighed, finally leaning back in his leather chair. He gestured for Kakashi to sit. "Restless is an understatement. They're being poisoned. The latest seizure near the docks confirmed it. The chemical signature matches the samples we pulled from those overdosed freshmen last week. The university isn't just a school anymore, it's a distribution hub." Kakashi's expression hardened. "The security on campus is tight, but it's private security. They're either incompetent or on the payroll. We've tried sending in standard surveillance, but these kids are tech-savvy and paranoid. They recognize a cop the moment he steps onto the quad." "Which is why we stopped sending cops," Jiraiya said, his eyes narrowing. He stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the flickering lights of the city. "We need someone who can blend into the noise. Someone who doesn't look like they've spent a decade on the force. We need a ghost, Kakashi. Someone young enough to sit in a lecture hall without drawing a second glance, but sharp enough to dismantle a smuggling ring from the inside." Kakashi remained silent for a moment, the weight of the request hanging in the air. "You're talking about a long-term deep-cover assignment. That's a heavy burden for anyone." Jiraiya turned around, a grim smile playing on his lips. "I'm not looking for just anyone. I'm looking for someone who can ignore the distractions of university life, the parties, the fame, the social hierarchies, and keep their eyes on the prize. We need an unshakable asset. Do you have him ready?" Kakashi nodded slowly, tapping his tablet to bring up a single, highly classified file. "He's been waiting for your word. He's young, he's brilliant, and quite frankly, he's the only one I trust to handle the pressure of being a student by day and a hunter by night. Jiraiya looked at the file, the blue light of the screen reflecting in his eyes. Then it settled. Let's see if he can survive the most dangerous place in Konoha, the social circles of the elite. The air in the high-security wing of the KMPF headquarters was filtered to a clinical chill, humming with the low-frequency vibration of server banks. Kakashi Hatake sat behind his desk, the surface a stark contrast to Jiraiya's chaotic workspace. Here, everything was digitized, streamlined, and cold. He leaned back, his eyes fixed on the door, counting the seconds. He didn't need a clock, he had a rhythm for these things. The heavy, reinforced door didn't creak. It swung open with a swift, silent efficiency that spoke of someone who moved through the world without leaving footprints. A young man stepped in. He was 22, but he carried an aura that felt decades older. He was strikingly handsome, possessing a refined, almost ethereal beauty that seemed out of place in the grit of the precinct. His skin was pale, flawless like polished ivory, and his hair was a vibrant, untamed gold that caught the overhead LED lights. He moved with a relaxed, predatory grace, clad in a simple black tactical jacket that hugged a frame honed by years of rigorous discipline. His eyes, a deep, piercing cerulean, were as flat and unreadable as a frozen lake. "You wanted me," the young man said. His voice was a calm, melodic baritone, devoid of any inflection. Kakashi let out a long, theatrical sigh, leaning his chin on his hand. "You know, Naruto, most people start with a knock. It's a basic social construct designed to prevent people from seeing things they shouldn't. You're incredibly rude, you know that?" Naruto didn't blink. He didn't shift his weight. He simply stood in the center of the room, his gaze fixed on a point just above Kakashi's head. He was a statue of flesh and bone, completely unaffected by the reprimand. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating, but Naruto seemed perfectly comfortable inhabiting it. "Still nothing?" Kakashi prompted, his voice tilting into a teasing register. "No, sorry, Captain, or I'll try harder next time? You really lack a sense of humor, don't you? It's a tragedy, truly. A face like yours should be smiling at girls, not staring down criminals in dark alleys." Naruto remained a void. No frown, no smirk, no spark of annoyance. Fine, Kakashi muttered, reaching into his desk drawer and pulling out a small, worn book with a bright red cover, the infamous Make Out Paradise. "Maybe you just need a little adult stimulation to jumpstart those emotions. Listen to this one, it's a classic." Kakashi cleared his throat and began to read a passage with exaggerated passion. The text was shamelessly lewd, detailing a clandestine encounter between a nurse and a wandering swordsman in a moonlit hot spring. He read the most graphic descriptions with a straight face, lingering on the adjectives, trying to provoke even a sliver of a blush or a flash of discomfort from the young detective. He described the heaving bosoms and glistening skin with the dedication of a theater actor. When he finished the passage, he looked up expectantly. Naruto's expression was identical to when he had entered the room. His pulse, visible at the base of his throat, hadn't sped up by a single beat. He looked at the book as if it were a technical manual for a water pump. "That is biologically improbable," Naruto stated flatly. "The friction described would result in second-degree burns." Kakashi groaned, dropping the book onto the desk with a thud. He rubbed his temples, feeling a genuine headache forming. "You're impossible. I try to lighten the mood with a bit of culture, and you give me a physics lesson. Do you even have blood in your veins, or is it just liquid nitrogen?" He watched Naruto closely, looking for a twitch of a lip or a tightening of the jaw. Nothing. Naruto's calm was absolute, a psychological fortress that Kakashi had never been able to breach. It was what made him the best undercover asset in the history of the Force, but it also made him the most frustrating subordinate to talk to. "You're a machine, Naruto," Kakashi said, his tone shifting from playful to somber. He stood up, walking around the desk until he was standing directly in front of the younger man. Even at this proximity, Naruto didn't recoil. He didn't even blink. But perhaps that's exactly what we need for this. The world is getting messy, and I need someone who doesn't get dirty when they walk through the mud. Kakashi leaned in, his single visible eye narrowing as he studied the blonde detective. He looked for a soul behind those blue eyes, but all he saw was a mirror reflecting his own tired face. "I didn't bring you here to critique my reading material," Kakashi whispered, his voice dropping to a serious, authoritative tone. He let out a final, heavy sigh, one that seemed to carry the weight of the entire city's problems. "I brought you a mission. Something unique. Something that's going to require every bit of that icy composure of yours." He paused, letting the silence build one last time, though he knew Naruto wasn't feeling the suspense. "Get ready, Naruto. This one is going to be interesting." The sterile lights of the office hummed overhead, casting a sharp glow over the digital maps of Konoha University that now flickered onto the wall screen. Kakashi tapped a command on his console, and the blueprints of the campus sprawled out in glowing blue lines. Your objective is simple in theory, yet exhausting in practice, Kakashi began, his voice losing its playful edge. You are to enroll as a transfer student in the Faculty of Criminal Justice. You'll live in the dorms, attend lectures, and participate in the vibrant campus life. Underneath that, you are to identify the primary distribution nodes of the dust and find out which faculty members or high-profile students are facilitating the shipments. Naruto's eyes shifted toward the screen, scanning the layout of the university with a cold, analytical speed. For the first time since entering the room, he spoke more than a sentence, and his voice was laced with a rare, crystalline frost. No. Kakashi blinked, his hand pausing over the controls. Excuse me? I am a detective, not a babysitter for pampered elite, Naruto said, his tone flat but heavy with conviction. Sending me to a university is a waste of departmental resources. My skill set is optimized for high-stakes interception and tactical extraction. I don't blend with civilians who spend their days debating aesthetics and their nights in a drunken stupor. Find someone else. Kakashi straightened his back, letting out a dry laugh that lacked any real mirth. It wasn't a request, Naruto. It's a direct order from the chief commissioner himself. You're the only operative with a clean enough record and a young enough face to pull this off. You have no choice. Naruto turned his head slowly, his cerulean eyes locking on to Kakashi's with a sudden, predatory intensity. It was a gaze that had made hardened killers confess in interrogation rooms, a sharp, unwavering stare that felt like a blade pressed against the throat. Kakashi felt a bead of sweat prickle at his temple. He laughed nervously, waving a hand in the air as if trying to brush away the tension. Come on, now. Don't look at me like I've sentenced you to death. It's a university. Think about it. It's a change of pace. You'll wear normal clothes, hoodies, jeans, things that don't smell like gunpowder. And who knows? Maybe you'll actually find a beautiful girl. The campus is famous for them. Some of the most stunning women in the country are enrolled there. It might be good for you to interact with someone who doesn't have a criminal record. Naruto's gaze didn't soften. If anything, his eyes narrowed, his silence becoming a physical weight in the room. The temperature seemed to drop 5 degrees. You're doing it again, Kakashi said, his laugh turning even more strained. He took a half step back, adjusting his mask. You're staring at me as if you're the one in charge here. I'm the captain, remember? I'm your superior officer. You're supposed to say yes, sir, and salute, not look like you're calculating the fastest way to break my ribs. Naruto didn't acknowledge the joke. I have no interest in beautiful girls or social interactions. They are variables that create instability in an investigation. Which is exactly why you're perfect, Kakashi countered, recovering his composure. The people running this ring expect a certain level of greed. Or lust. Or ego. You have none of those. You're a ghost in the machine. You'll wear the student uniform, carry the books, and sit in the back of the class. You'll be the quiet, handsome mystery student that everyone wonders about, but nobody truly knows. Kakashi walked over to a locker and pulled out a duffel bag, tossing it onto the desk. It landed with a soft thud. In there is your new life. High-end civilian clothing, a student ID that passed every biometric check, and a smartphone rigged with an encrypted link to this office. No weapons unless absolutely necessary. You are a civilian now, Naruto. A student of law and order. Naruto looked down at the bag, his expression as unreadable as a blank page. He didn't reach for it immediately. He stood there, a silent protest in human form, before finally reaching out and gripping the strap. I will find the source, Naruto said, his voice low and dangerous. And when I do, I expect to be pulled out the same hour. I won't play act as a student a second longer than required. Kakashi smiled, though it stayed hidden behind his mask. He gave a mock salute, his eye crinkling with a hint of his usual mischief. Understood, Mr. Uzumaki? Now go home, change out of those tactical boots, and try to look like someone who actually enjoys being alive. Your first lecture is at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Prepare yourself, detective. The ivory tower is waiting. The heavy doors closed behind Naruto, leaving a silence in the hallway that felt unnaturally still. Inside the office, the tension that had held the room captive seemed to dissipate, replaced by the low hum of the air filtration system. Jiraiya, who had been watching the interaction through the tinted glass of the observation deck above, stepped down the spiral staircase. His heavy boots thudded against the metal, a stark contrast to the silent exit of the young detective. Jiraiya stood in the center of the room, his arms crossed over his broad chest. He stared at the closed door, his brow furrowed in deep thought. He looked like a man weighing the fate of the city on a very thin scale. He's a cold one, Kakashi, Jiraiya rumbled, his voice echoing in the sterile office. I've seen deep-cover operatives before, men who could turn their emotions off like a light switch, but that kid, he doesn't even seem to have a switch. He's like a glacier moving through a desert. Are you sure about this? He's bleak, he's detached, and frankly, he's gloomy. This mission requires a certain level of social lubrication. He might just fail if he can't find a way to actually talk to people without making them feel like they're being interrogated by a statue. Kakashi leaned back against his desk, a relaxed, almost lazy posture that hid his sharp focus. He reached for his book again but didn't open it, instead turning it over in his hands. You're misreading him, Commissioner, Kakashi said, a light chuckle vibrating in his chest. Naruto isn't gloomy, he's focused. His lack of emotional baggage isn't a weakness, it's his greatest armor. In a place like Konoha University, where everyone is screaming for attention, a man who says nothing is the most fascinating thing in the room. He won't have to seek out the targets. They'll be drawn to him like moths to a very cold blue flame. Jiraiya sighed, pacing the length of the room. The university isn't a battlefield, Kakashi. It's a hive of ego and hormones. If he doesn't play the part, he'll stand out for the wrong reasons. I need someone who can infiltrate the inner circles, not someone who sits in the corner looking like he's planning a tactical strike on the cafeteria. Trust me, Kakashi replied, his eye crinkling as he smiled behind the mask. I have absolute confidence in him. He's exactly 22, the perfect age. He's technically their peer, even if his mind is 10 years ahead of them. He has the look, the age, and that mysterious aura that college students find irresistible. In fact, I'm willing to place a wager. Jiraiya stopped pacing and looked at him. A wager? By the time this investigation is over, Kakashi said, his tone turning playful, not only will he have dismantled that smuggling ring, but he'll probably come out of there married. There are girls at that university who are in a league of their own, highly intelligent, incredibly beautiful, and used to getting what they want. They've never met someone like Naruto. He won't know what hit him. He might start the mission as a lone wolf, but he'll end it with a ring on his finger and a very different perspective on social variables. Jiraiya barked out a laugh, a loud, booming sound that shook the tension from the air. Naruto? Married? The boy doesn't even know how to flirt with a chair. He'd probably treat a date like a witness deposition. That's the beauty of it, Kakashi said, standing up and stretching his arms. He won't try. And that's exactly why he'll succeed. He's the most dangerous man we have because he doesn't care about being liked. And in a world where everyone wants to be liked, he is king. Jiraiya shook his head, though a small, appreciative smirk touched his lips. I hope you're right, Kakashi. For the city's sake, and for his. Let's see if the unshakable Naruto survives his first day of higher education. He'll do more than survive, Kakashi murmured, looking at the empty doorway. He'll conquer it. Get ready, Commissioner. The show is about to begin. The morning sun over Konoha University did not merely rise, it performed, casting a brilliant, expensive-looking amber glow over the sprawling campus. This was not a place for the average or the uninspired. The architecture was a seamless blend of traditional Neo-Edo elegance and glass-paneled futurism. Manicured lawns, vibrant with cherry blossoms that seemed to bloom with artificial perfection, stretched between lecture halls that resembled high-end art galleries. The air itself smelled of luxury, a mixture of expensive perfumes, imported espresso, and the crisp, clean scent of wealth. It was the premier institution for the children of the elite, the heirs to corporate empires, and the future architects of the city's destiny. At exactly 8:15 a.m., the atmosphere of the main plaza shifted. It was a subtle, rhythmic change in the crowd's movement, like water parting for a predatory shark of unimaginable beauty. Ino Yamanaka stepped onto the polished marble walkway. She was a vision of calculated perfection. Her long, platinum blonde hair cascaded down her back like a river of spun silk, swaying in perfect time with her stride. She wore a tailored, high-waisted lavender skirt that accentuated the curve of her hips, paired with a sleeveless cream silk blouse that clung to her frame with breathless precision. On her feet were designer heels that clicked against the stone with the authority of a metronome. Her skin was flawless, glowing with the radiance of someone who had never known a day of true hardship. Behind her designer sunglasses, her pale blue eyes held a gaze of supreme indifference. She didn't look at the world was merely the backdrop for her existence. As she moved, a wake of longing and desperation followed her. To the young men of Konoha University, Ino was more than the most popular girl on campus. She was a goddess, a challenge, and an obsession. Groups of students, some the sons of senators and tech moguls, practically tripped over themselves to enter her orbit. Ino! Good morning! I got you that limited edition latte you mentioned on your story. one boy stammered, rushing to her side with a trembling cup. He was dressed in a suit that cost more than a mid-sized car, yet he looked like a beggar in her presence. Ino didn't stop. She didn't even turn her head. "It's lukewarm," she said, her voice a melodic but razor-sharp blade. "And I changed my mind about caffeine 6 minutes ago. Dispose of it." The boy wilted, his face flushing a deep crimson as his friend snickered, yet even as he was humiliated, he couldn't take his eyes off the sway of her hair. Another student, a star athlete with a physique carved from granite, stepped into her path with a wide, confident grin. "Hey, Ino. I've got front row tickets to the gala tonight. My car is picking me up at 7. You're coming with me." Ino stopped then, slowly lowering her sunglasses to look him up and down. The silence was deafening. She looked at him not as a peer, but as a particularly dull insect. "Your confidence is almost as loud as your cologne," she remarked, her lip curling into a sneer of pure, unfiltered disdain. "The answer is no. Not tonight, not in this lifetime, and certainly not with someone who thinks a front row ticket is a personality trait. Move. You're blocking the sun." The athlete's bravado vanished instantly. He stepped aside, bowing his head instinctively, crushed by the weight of her rejection yet still watching her with a hunger that bordered on the pathetic. This was the daily ritual of Konoha University. Ino Yamanaka walked, and the world knelt. She treated the male population with a cold, systematic cruelty that only seemed to fuel their desire. She was the diva of the roots, the girl who had everything and found everyone else lacking. She thrived on the power, on the way they groveled and pleaded for a single glance. To her, the university was her kingdom, and every boy in it was just another servant she hadn't bothered to learn the name of yet. She moved toward the great hall, a slight, satisfied smirk touching her lips, unaware that the unshakable variable was about to enter her perfect, controlled world. The tension in the central plaza was thick enough to choke the life out of the morning breeze. As Ino Yamanaka stood at the center of her adoring, pathetic court, a shadow fell across the marble. Emerging from the crowd was Sakura Haruno, her pink hair a sharp, defiant contrast to the sea of luxury. Sakura clutched her textbooks to her chest, her emerald eyes burning with a mixture of resentment and deep-seated rivalry that spanned years. For Sakura, Ino wasn't just a popular girl, she was a constant reminder of everything superficial about Konoha University. The two stood frozen for a moment, the social titan versus the studious underdog. "Oh, look everyone," Ino's voice rang out, dripping with a sugary venom that made the boys around her titter in anticipation. "The library has finally released its most dedicated prisoner. Honestly, Sakura, do you ever stop trying to compensate for that forehead with extra credit?" The crowd erupted into a chorus of sycophantic laughter. Sakura's knuckles turned white around her books. "At least I'm here to get an education, Ino, not to collect a fan club of brainless lapdogs who can't see past your hair dye." Ino didn't flinch. Instead, she took a step closer, her heels clicking like the countdown of a bomb. She turned to the crowd, gesturing toward Sakura with a hand that sparkled with expensive rings. "You see this? This is what happens when you have no style and even less ambition. You'll spend 4 years in the shadows, Sakura, and 40 more as a miserable assistant to people like me. You'll always be the girl standing behind the girl everyone actually looks at. You're a background character in a world I own." The humiliation was a physical weight. The students, desperate to stay in Ino's good graces, joined in the mockery, pointing and whispering. Sakura stood her ground, though a shimmer of moisture threatened the corners of her eyes. She hated Ino, hated her ease, her power, and the way she manipulated everyone like puppets on a string. Suddenly, a heavy, authoritative presence cut through the noise. The laughter died in a jagged instant. Walking toward them was Professor Asuma Sarutobi. He was a man who exuded a rugged, effortless command, a cigarette unlit in the corner of his mouth, and his hands deep in the pockets of his dark blazer. Asuma wasn't just any lecturer, he was a titan of the faculty, a man whose reputation for toughness was legendary. "That's enough," Asuma said, his voice a low, vibrating growl that settled over the plaza like a fog. "The university is a place of learning, not a playground for your petty ego trips, Miss Yamanaka. And the rest of you, get to class before I decide your grades need a reevaluation for conduct." The crowd dispersed instantly, the boys scurrying away like frightened mice. Even Ino straightened her posture, her defiant smirk fading into a mask of polite boredom, though her eyes still shot sparks at Sakura. Asuma scanned the remaining group, his sharp gaze lingering on the entrance of the main lecture hall. The atmosphere changed, the air felt suddenly still, as if the university itself was holding its breath for what came next. "Settle down," Asuma commanded, looking toward the heavy oak doors where a figure was silhouetted against the morning light. "I've been informed of a change to our roster. We are beginning the term with an addition to the criminal justice program." He paused, a rare, knowing glint appearing in his eyes as the golden-haired figure stepped fully into the shade of the portico. Everyone meet our new. The heavy oak doors of the lecture hall swung open, and for the second time that morning, the air in the room underwent a violent shift. But this wasn't the practiced elegance of Ino, this was something raw, cold, and utterly indifferent. Naruto stepped into the room. He was wearing a simple, charcoal gray button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms that looked like they were corded with steel. His attire was unremarkable, yet on his frame, it looked like a high-fashion statement. His pale skin seemed to catch the light, and his golden hair, messy and unstyled, gave him the look of a fallen angel who had just finished a fight. He didn't look around. He didn't smile. His face was set in a mask of profound boredom, his brows slightly furrowed in a permanent scowl that radiated a sense of "I don't want to be here." The silence that followed his entrance was absolute. Every girl in the room, including the ones who had been laughing at Ino's jokes seconds ago, felt a collective catch in their breath. He was strikingly handsome, in a way that felt dangerous, a stark contrast to the pampered boys they were used to. Asuma, leaning against his podium, studied the newcomer with a keen interest. "You're late for your first day," Asuma noted, though there was no malice in his voice. "If you're going to join the elite of the Criminal Justice Department, you might want to start with a name." Naruto stopped in the middle of the aisle, his hands shoved into his pockets. He didn't look at Asuma, instead staring at the chalkboard as if it were an enemy. "Naruto," he said. The name was short, clipped, and devoid of any warmth. "Just Naruto?" Asuma prompted, raising an eyebrow. "Fine. Well, Naruto, this is a class for people with vision. The future leaders of law. So tell us, what are your ambitions? What are your dreams for the future?" Naruto finally turned his head, his icy blue eyes meeting Asuma's. A look of genuine disgust flickered across his face, as if the very word dream was an insult to his intelligence. "I don't have ambitions," he stated flatly, his voice echoing in the silent hall. "And I don't have dreams." A gasp rippled through the room. In a university where everyone was obsessed with legacy and future, his nihilism was like a cold splash of water. "Over here, Naruto. There's a seat next to me," a girl from the third row whispered loudly, patting the empty chair beside her. "No, come sit here," another called out, tucking her hair behind her ear and leaning forward. The women in the room were practically preening, trying to catch the eye of the mysterious, brooding blonde. Except for Ino. Ino Yamanaka watched him with a calculated intensity. She felt a surge of irritation. How could someone so handsome be so lifeless? She decided, right then and there, to break him. It was her duty as the queen of the campus. She shifted in her seat, crossing her long legs slowly, letting one heel dangle off her foot. She leaned back, arching her neck to let her blonde hair fall over her shoulder, and fixed him with a gaze that had brought billionaires to their knees. She didn't say a word, but her entire body was a siren song of invitation. Naruto's gaze swept over the room. His eyes passed over Ino as if she were a piece of furniture, no worse, as if she were a blur in his peripheral vision that didn't even deserve focus. Without a word of acknowledgement to her or the other girls, he began walking up the stairs. He ignored the perfume, the smiles, and the desperate whispers. He kept walking until he reached the row where Sakura Haruno sat, still fuming and isolated from the rest. Without asking permission, and without even looking at her, Naruto pulled out the chair next to Sakura and sat down. He slumped slightly in his seat, staring straight ahead at the podium, completely oblivious to the fact that he had just committed the ultimate social sin, ignoring the queen to sit with the outcast. The room was silent. Ino's face turned a shade of crimson that clashed horribly with her lavender skirt. Sakura blinked, looking at the stone-faced boy next to her in utter shock. "Let's begin," Asuma said, a small, hidden smirk playing on his lips. "We have a lot of work to do." The atmosphere in the lecture hall was suffocatingly tense. While Professor Asuma began droning on about the evolution of penal codes, the real drama was unfolding in the silence of the rows. Sakura Haruno felt a strange, electric heat radiating from the person sitting next to her. She stole a glance at Naruto. Up close, his profile was even more intimidating, the sharp line of his jaw, the way his golden hair fell over his brow, and those eyes that seemed to be looking through the walls rather than at them. He sat with a rigid, military stillness, his hands folded on the desk, not even bothering to take out a notebook or a pen. She cleared her throat, her heart fluttering with a mix of curiosity and nervousness. "I'm Sakura," she whispered, leaning slightly toward him. "It's a bold move, what you said to Asuma. Most people here spend hours rehearsing their dreams just to impress the faculty." Naruto didn't turn his head. His gaze remained fixed on the front of the room, cold, and unwavering. He didn't offer a name in return, nor a smile. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. You really look like you'd rather be anywhere else, Sakura tried again, her voice a bit more persistent. You have this look on your face like the air in here is toxic. Why are you even here if you hate it so much? Is it family pressure? A scholarship? Finally, Naruto moved. He turned his head slowly, his cerulean eyes locking onto hers. There was no warmth in them, only a crushing, analytical weight that made her feel like she was being scanned by a high-tech sensor. It's not your concern, he said. His voice was a low, flat rasp that sent a chill down her spine. I'm here because I have to be. Beyond that, my reasons don't involve you. Sakura's face flushed a deep, indignant scarlet. She had expected him to be cool or mysterious, but this was pure, unadulterated coldness. You're incredibly rude, she hissed, her emerald eyes flashing with anger. I was just trying to be a decent human being. You don't have to be so blunt. Naruto didn't even acknowledge her frustration. He simply turned his gaze back to the podium, dismissing her existence as quickly as he had acknowledged it. 2 rows down, Ino Yamanaka was a portrait of simmering fury. She wasn't listening to a word of Asuma's lecture. Instead, she was gripping her designer pen so hard it threatened to snap. She had seen the whole interaction, or lack thereof. She had watched as Naruto sat next to Forehead Girl and then watched as he treated her like a nuisance. But what stung the most was the initial rejection. He hadn't even looked at her. He hadn't noticed the hair, the perfume, or the calculated pose. To a girl who was used to being the sun that everyone else orbited, Naruto was a black hole that swallowed her light without a trace. He's distracted, Ino whispered to herself, her eyes narrowing as she watched the back of his blonde head. Maybe the lighting was wrong. Maybe he was so intimidated by me that he couldn't even look in my direction. Yeah, that has to be it. He's probably terrified of how beautiful I am. She bit her lip, her competitive spirit roaring to life. No one ignored Ino Yamanaka. No one. She watched him for the rest of the hour, her mind already spinning a web of how she would corner him, break that icy exterior, and make him regret the second he chose to sit next to Sakura Haruno instead of her. Naruto, meanwhile, sat in total silence, his mind miles away from the social games of college students, focused only on the mission and the hidden shadows he was sent to find. The lecture hall emptied into the bright, airy corridors of the university, a sea of students chattering about weekend plans and fashion. Amidst the flow, Naruto walked with a rhythmic, purposeful stride that seemed to cut through the crowd like a prow of a ship. He didn't look left or right. His mind was already mapping the security cameras and exit routes of the building. Wait up. Hey, I'm talking to you. Sakura struggled to keep pace with him, her heels clicking rapidly on the linoleum. She was gesturing wildly, pointing toward the sprawling cafeteria complex visible through the glass walls. That's the South Wing, where the law students hang out. If you want to get anywhere here, you need to know the hierarchy. It's not just about grades, Naruto. It's about who you know. Naruto didn't even turn his head. He was staring at a janitor's closet, wondering if the lock was standard or electronic. To him, Sakura's voice was merely background noise, the chirping of a persistent bird. Frustration boiled over in Sakura. She had never been so thoroughly ignored in her life. In a sudden fit of pique, she reached up and sharply yanked a lock of his golden hair. Naruto's reaction was instantaneous. He stopped dead, his body tensing into a defensive posture, his eyes flashing with a sudden, dangerous spark of annoyance. He looked at her, as if she had just pulled a pin on a grenade. Don't touch me, he hissed, his voice like the grinding of tectonic plates. Then listen, Sakura snapped, placing her hands on her hips. I'm trying to help you. You're new, you're weird, and you're going to get eaten alive by people like Ino if you don't have allies. You need friends. Social capital is everything here. And well, I wouldn't mind being your first friend. I can show you the ropes. Naruto straightened his shirt, his expression returning to its mask of cold indifference. I don't want friends. And I certainly don't want to be yours. I'm not here for social capital. I'm here for a purpose that doesn't include you. Sakura's face turned a violent shade of crimson. You are beyond rude. You're socially stunted. You lack the most basic human communication skills. It's a miracle you even know how to use a fork. She stepped closer, her emerald eyes narrowing with a new resolve. Fine. If you're this much of a disaster, I'll make you my project. I'm going to teach you how to be a person. I don't need a teacher, Naruto muttered, beginning to walk again. Don't be stupid, Naruto. Sakura lunged forward and grabbed his arm, pulling his hand toward her. In her earnestness to stop him, she tucked his hand firmly under her arm, pressing it against the soft curve of her side, just beneath her chest, as she leaned in to lecture him. "You're going to be my project, and that's final. You'll thank me when you're not eating lunch alone in a stairwell." Naruto felt the warmth and softness of her body against his hand, but instead of the reaction most men would have, he felt a wave of pure irritation. He felt trapped, distracted, and, most of all, furious at the person who had sent him here. "I'm going to kill that silver-haired idiot when I get back," Naruto thought, his jaw tightening as he envisioned Kakashi's lazy smile. He knew this would happen. He's probably laughing right now. "Who are you talking about?" Sakura asked, noticing his murderous expression. "Who are you cursing under your breath?" "Nobody," Naruto snapped, wrenching his hand away from her grip with a sharp, decisive motion. He stepped back, putting several feet of distance between them. "Just stay out of my way." He turned and disappeared into the crowd of the cafeteria, leaving Sakura standing there, huffing with indignation and nursing a strangely racing heart. From a balcony overlooking the hall, Ino Yamanaka watched the entire exchange. She gripped the railing, her knuckles white, her eyes fixed on the spot where Naruto had been standing. A cold, predatory smile slowly spread across her face as she watched Sakura's frustrated silhouette. "Enjoy it while it lasts, forehead," Ino whispered into the wind, her voice dripping with malice. "Because once I decide to step in, he won't even remember your name." The cafeteria was a sprawling cathedral of glass and high-end catering, smelling of expensive roasted beans and sea salt caramel. Naruto stood near a vending terminal, his posture rigid, looking at the menu with the same intensity he would use to scan a bomb's wiring. "Oh, come on!" Sakura chirped, stepping into his space and nudging him toward the gourmet sandwich station. "You've been staring at the screen for 3 minutes. A gentleman would have already offered to buy me lunch. You wouldn't make a girl as pretty as me pay for her own meal on her first day as your guide, would you?" Naruto's jaw tightened. The pretty girl logic was a social currency he refused to recognize. He looked at her, his blue eyes cold and flat. "I didn't ask for a guide. And I'm not a gentleman." "You're a headache is what you are," Sakura huffed, crossing her arms. "Fine, skip the food if you want to starve, but at least get us some drinks. My throat is parched from explaining the faculty hierarchy to your stone ears." Naruto let out a long, weary sigh, the kind of sound a man makes when he realizes the fastest way to end a conflict is to simply surrender to the absurdity. He tapped the screen with sharp, mechanical movements, swiping his encrypted departmental card. He grabbed 2 chilled bottles of electrolyte water and handed one to her without a word, his expression one of pure, unadulterated boredom. Across the crowded hall, perched on a sleek, high-top table, Kiba Inuzuka narrowed his eyes. His signature leather jacket was open, and his foot tapped restlessly against the metal chair leg. Beside him sat Shino Aburame, draped in his usual high-collared coat, his eyes hidden behind dark lenses as he adjusted a small electronic device. "See that?" Kiba hissed, gesturing toward Naruto. "The new guy. He's been on campus for 3 hours and he's already got the forehead orbiting him. If he keeps that brooding, mysterious act up, he's gonna catch Ino's eye. And that's a problem." Shino didn't look up from his screen. "There are approximately 4,000 female students on this campus, Kiba. The probability of one newcomer disrupting your chances with one specific girl is statistically manageable. You are overreacting." "You don't get it, Shino!" Kiba groaned, leaning back and running a hand through his hair. "Ino isn't just any girl. She's the girl. She's the hottest thing to ever walk these halls." Kiba's eyes glazed over as he looked toward the table where Ino was sitting with her entourage. His imagination began to run wild, fueled by a mixture of hormones and obsession. He could see it clearly, Ino in one of her skin-tight lavender outfits, the way the fabric hugged her curves and emphasized her bust. He imagined her leaning over a desk, her long blonde hair brushing against his face as she whispered his name. "Oh Kiba, his imagination Ino cooed, her voice a sultry purr. "You're the only real man in this school. Forget those moody blondes. Come here, my love." He could almost feel her soft, perfect skin and the weight of her leaning against him. "You're drooling," Shino said flatly, his voice cutting through Kiba's fantasy like a serrated knife. "And your heart rate has increased by 20%. You are an idiot." Kiba snapped out of it, wiping his mouth and scowling. "Shut up, Shino. I'm serious. That new guy Naruto? He doesn't know the rules here. He thinks he can just walk in and be the alpha. I'm gonna have to teach him how we do things in Konoha." The atmosphere in the cafeteria shifted from a dull roar to a sharp, expectant silence as Naruto walked back toward the table, clutching the drinks with a grip that threatened to shatter the plastic. Every step he took felt like a chore, a heavy tax on his patience. His brow was furrowed in a permanent scowl, his thoughts a dark whirlpool of resentment toward the mission and the silver-haired man who had assigned it. Kiba Inuzuka watched him approach, a jagged, arrogant smirk stretching across his face. As Naruto passed his table, Kiba casually kicked his foot out, his heavy boot catching Naruto's ankle with calculated precision. The trip was sudden. Naruto, caught in the middle of a mental curse against the KMPF, stumbled forward. The bottles of electrolyte water flew from his hands, skidding across the polished floor, and Naruto hit the ground with a dull thud. The cafeteria erupted. A few students gasped, but most let out a cruel, mocking ripple of laughter. "Watch your step, pretty boy," Kiba barked, leaning back in his chair with a triumphant grin. "Maybe they don't teach you how to walk where you came from. This is a university, not a runway." Sakura was on her feet in an instant, her chair screeching against the floor. She didn't hesitate, stepping between Naruto and the mocking crowd. "You absolute pig, Kiba!" she screamed, her voice vibrating with a raw, unbridled fury. "Do you have any idea how pathetic you look? You're a third-year student acting like a toddler in a sandbox. You have zero respect, zero class, and you're a total piece of trash." Kiba's smirk faltered for a second under the weight of her verbal assault. "Relax, forehead. It was just a joke. Maybe he should pay more attention to the world around him." "It's not a joke, you brainless dog," Sakura snapped, her eyes flashing green fire. She knelt down beside Naruto, pulling a silk handkerchief from her bag. "Are you okay? Here, let me get that." She began dabbing at a smudge on his charcoal shirt, her hands trembling with protective rage. Naruto didn't look at her. He didn't look at the handkerchief. He rose from the floor with a slow, mechanical grace that felt predatory. The air around him seemed to thicken, the temperature dropping until the students nearby felt a genuine chill. The unshakable mask hadn't just cracked, it had disintegrated. "Hey, I'm talking to you, loser," Kiba said, standing up to face him, emboldened by the audience. "What's the matter? Did I hurt your feelings? You gonna cry for your—" The sentence never finished. In a blur of motion that no civilian eye could track, Naruto's fist connected with Kiba's jaw. The sound was like a whip cracking, a sickening thwack that echoed off the high ceilings. Kiba didn't just stumble. He was launched off his feet, his body spinning through the air before crashing into a nearby lunch table, sending trays and salads flying. The laughter died instantly. The entire cafeteria froze. Naruto wasn't finished. He crossed the distance in 2 strides, reaching down and grabbing Kiba by the collar of his leather jacket. He hauled him up with one hand, his strength defying his lean frame. With a snarl of pure, focused rage, Naruto slammed Kiba face down onto a long cafeteria table. He didn't use a weapon. He used the environment. Naruto began dragging Kiba's face across the length of the table, through pools of spilled soup, mashed potatoes, and discarded sauce. Kiba tried to scramble, to fight back, but Naruto's grip was like an iron vice. He was using Kiba like a rag to clean the table, his movements fueled by every ounce of frustration he felt for this babysitting mission. "Is this what you wanted to see?" Naruto hissed, punctuating each word by slamming Kiba's head back down onto the wood. The students, initially shocked, began to cheer. The diva's lapdog was finally being put in his place. But the cheer was short-lived as they realized Naruto wasn't stopping. He was a whirlwind of calculated violence, his eyes glowing with a terrifying, icy light. "Security! Get him off him!" someone screamed. 4 campus security guards rushed into the fray, grabbing Naruto's arms and waist. It took all of them, straining and shouting, to pull him away from a gasping, sauce-covered, and bruised Kiba. Naruto didn't struggle against the guards. He simply stood there, his chest heaving, staring at the floor with a gaze that could burn through steel. He was vibrating with a silent, tectonic fury, not at Kiba, but at the fact that he had lost control. "Get him out of here!" the lead guard shouted, dragging Naruto toward the exit. Sakura stood amidst the wreckage, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and profound admiration. As Naruto was led away, she couldn't help it, she let out a triumphant laugh, jumping slightly in place. "That was incredible," she whispered to herself, her heart hammering against her ribs. The female students in the room were whispering frantically, their eyes fixed on Naruto's retreating back with a new, intense hunger. He wasn't just handsome anymore, he was a force of nature. Shino Abirame walked over to where Kiba was groaning on the floor, covered in ranch dressing and shame. Shino adjusted his glasses, looking down at his friend with a clinical, detached pity. "I told you, Kiba," Shino said softly. "You have placed yourself in an undesirable position. You didn't just lose a fight, you became his pedestal. You've made him the most famous man on campus." On the balcony above, Ino Yamanaka stood perfectly still. She had watched the entire explosion from start to finish. Her sunglasses were lowered, and for the first time, her pale blue eyes weren't filled with disdain. They were wide, focused, and shimmering with a dangerous new interest. She watched the guards pull Naruto out of the hall, her tongue darting out to lick her lower lip. Finally, Ino whispered, a slow, predatory smile blooming on her face. Someone worth breaking. The next morning, Konoha University felt like a powder charge waiting for a spark. The news of the cafeteria massacre had spread through social media faster than a viral trend. Everyone was looking for the blonde ghost who had dismantled Kiba Inuzuka without breaking a sweat. Ino Yamanaka stood near the grand archway of the main entrance, her presence commanding a 30-foot radius of empty space. Today, she had dressed with the precision of a general preparing for a decisive battle. She wore a form-fitting, emerald green mini-dress that complemented her eyes, paired with a white cropped blazer and stiletto boots that made her look 7 feet tall. Her hair was a flawless silk curtain, and her makeup was a masterpiece of natural perfection. She wasn't just waiting, she was hunting. When the silver gates finally swung open, Naruto stepped onto the campus grounds. He looked even more irritated than the day before. He was wearing a simple black hoodie with the hood down and dark jeans, looking like he had slept for maybe 3 hours. He didn't look at the students who whispered as he passed. He looked like a man walking through a graveyard. Ino's eyes narrowed. There he is. She waited until he was just a few feet away, timed her stride perfectly, and then, with a calculated stumble that would have won an Academy Award, she slammed her shoulder directly into his chest. The impact was like hitting a brick wall. Naruto didn't move an inch, but Ino let out a soft, dramatic gasp, letting her designer leather satchel slip from her hand. A dozen expensive textbooks and high-end tablets scattered across the marble floor with a series of loud, attention-grabbing thuds. "Oh no!" Ino exclaimed, her voice a perfect blend of distress and feminine vulnerability. She looked down at the mess, then looked up at Naruto through her long, dark lashes, her pale blue eyes shimmering with a false shimmer of tears. "My books, everything is everywhere." She paused, waiting for the inevitable. In her mind, the script was already written. He would apologize profusely, drop to his knees to gather her things, and she would grant him a small, merciful smile to begin his lifelong devotion to her. "You there?" she said, her voice dropping into a soft, melodic purr as she looked at him. "Since you were the one I bumped into, could you be a dear and gather those for me? Some of them are quite heavy for a girl like me." She leaned forward slightly, offering him a view that had caused traffic accidents, her lips curved into a triumphant, secret smile. She was certain she had him. Naruto stopped. He looked down at the books scattered across the floor, then slowly looked back at Ino. His expression didn't change. There was no blush, no stuttering, no frantic movement to help. His eyes remained as cold and flat as a winter sky. "No," Naruto said. The word was a single, sharp strike of a hammer. Ino's breath hitched. Her heart skipped a beat, but not out of romance, out of pure, unadulterated shock. "I beg your pardon?" "Pick them up yourself," Naruto stated, his voice devoid of any emotion. "You saw me coming. You had ample space to move. You drop them, you collect them." Without another word, without even a glance at her stunned face, he stepped over a fallen textbook and continued walking toward the lecture hall, his hands shoved deep into his hoodie pockets. The silence that followed was deafening. 100 students had witnessed the exchange. The Queen of Konoha had just been told no, not just no, but told to do labor like a commoner. Ino stood frozen, her mouth slightly agape. Her brain struggled to process the reality. Asterisk no? He said no? To me? To Ino Yamanaka? Asterisk. "Ino! Let us help. Don't worry about him, he's a freak." Within seconds, 4 boys from the surrounding crowd were on the ground, frantically scrambling to pick up her books as if they were holy relics. They wiped the dust off the covers with their own sleeves, bowing and scraping as they tried to hand them back to her. "Here, Ino! I've got the tablet. I'll carry them for you, Ino. Just tell me where." Ino didn't even see them. She snatched her bag from one of the boys with a sudden, violent motion that made him flinch. She ignored their fawning, treating them like invisible dogs as she glared at the retreating back of the blonde detective. Her face was flushed a deep, burning scarlet, and her hands were shaking with a fury she had never felt in her 20 years of life. He actually walked away," she hissed under her breath, her nails digging into the leather of her bag. She turned on her heel, ignoring the worried questions of her sycophants. Her mind was a storm of rage and obsession. He hadn't seen her beauty? He hadn't felt her power? He must not know who I am, she whispered, her eyes turning into sharp slivers of ice. He's just new. He's ignorant. But I'll make sure he learns. I'll make him crawl for that no. She marched toward the building, her heels clicking like a death march, her entire world now focused on the one man who didn't want a piece of it. The lecture hall was buzzing with a different energy today. The news of the goddess being brushed off at the gate had traveled through every group chat on campus. Naruto sat in his usual spot, a fortress of silence amidst the chatter. Next to him, Sakura was practically glowing, her eyes bright with a mix of disbelief and sheer joy. I can't believe you did that, Sakura whispered, leaning in so close her pink hair brushed his shoulder. The look on her face. Naruto, you're officially a legend. No one, and I mean no one, has ever told Ino Yamanaka to pick up her own books. You're like a breath of fresh air in this place. Naruto stared at the front of the room, his jaw tight. She was in the way. It's a matter of physics, not legendary status. Sakura giggled, a sound of pure amusement. Whatever you say, Mr. Physics. A few rows down, Ino was fuming, though she hid it behind a mask of practiced poise. She took her seat directly in front of Naruto, the scent of her expensive jasmine perfume wafting back toward him like a challenge. She waited until Professor Asuma began to set up his slides, then she made her move. With a graceful, exaggerated motion, Ino began patting down her designer bag. She let out a soft, theatrical "oh." That caught the attention of everyone in the immediate vicinity. She turned around slowly in her seat, arching her back so that her figure was emphasized perfectly, her emerald dress straining slightly against her curves. She rested her arm on the back of the chair, placing her hand just beneath her chest in a pose that was a masterclass in calculated seduction. She fixed Naruto with a sultry, playful gaze, her lips curved into a teasing smile. Oh, how embarrassing, I seem to have forgotten my pen. Hey, you the handsome one, she purred, her voice loud enough for the whole row to hear. Would you be a dear and lend me a pen? I'd hate to miss a single word of the lecture. Naruto looked at her hand, then at her face, his expression shifting into one of visible disgust. To him, this wasn't a flirtation, it was an inefficient use of time and a pathetic display of manipulation. No, Naruto said flatly. The word cut through the air like a guillotine. Ask someone else. You're blocking my view of the board. The silence lasted for exactly 1 second before the room exploded. A wave of laughter rippled through the lecture hall, starting with the students nearby and spreading like wildfire. It wasn't just a chuckle, it was a roar. For the first time, the queen was being treated like a nuisance, and the absurdity of it was too much for anyone to contain. Sakura was doubled over, clutching her stomach, her face turning as red as a beet as she wheezed with laughter. Oh my god, ask someone else! She gasped between bouts of hysterics. Ino's face transformed. The practiced smile vanished, replaced by a deep, burning crimson that spread from her neck to her forehead. She was mortified. The sound of her peers laughing at her, led by her rival, was a humiliation she hadn't prepared for. Ino! Take my pen! I have 5. Take mine, Ino! It's a fountain pen, very smooth. A dozen boys were suddenly leaning over their desks, thrusting various writing utensils toward her like offerings to a fallen idol. Ino snapped. She reached into the side pocket of her own bag, pulled out a gold-plated pen that had been there the whole time, and slammed it onto her desk. Get lost! All of you! She hissed at the boys, treating them like stray dogs. I found it! Back off! She turned back around, her shoulders shaking with suppressed rage. She felt small. She felt exposed. And she felt a burning, obsessive need to destroy the man behind her. Sakura finally caught her breath, wiping a tear from her eye. She leaned toward Naruto, her voice dropping to a serious but amused whisper. You really don't know what you're doing, do you? That's Ino Yamanaka. Her family owns half the floral and cosmetic industry in the country. She's used to every guy on campus, and most of the faculty, falling over themselves to breathe her air. These boys, they're socially repressed, obsessed with her looks, and she plays them like a violin. She's the definition of a spoiled diva. Naruto didn't look impressed. She's a distraction. Sakura smiled, a genuine, warm expression. You're something else, Naruto. You really don't care about the games, do you? You're actually a great friend to have around, mostly because you make the people I hate look like idiots. Naruto didn't respond, his eyes already tracking Professor Asuma's first slide, but the weight of Ino's silent, vibrating fury remained a constant presence in front of him. The mission was getting complicated, and the social variable in the emerald dress was starting to look like a much larger problem than he had anticipated. The atmosphere in the lecture hall took a sudden, chilling dive. Professor Asuma, who usually maintained a relaxed demeanor, stood stiffly behind his podium. He cleared his throat, his expression unusually grim as he looked over the sea of students. "Before we begin today's analysis on criminal psychology," Asuma said, his voice dropping into a somber register, "I have a grave announcement. 2 members of the university's board of directors were found dead late last night in their private estates. The authorities are calling it a professional hit. The campus is now under a heightened security alert. There is a possibility that the perpetrator, or someone connected to them, could be moving among us. Be careful who you trust." A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Students began whispering frantically, casting suspicious glances at one another. Sakura turned to Naruto, her eyes wide with genuine horror. She leaned in, her voice trembling. "Naruto, did you hear that? 2 directors. Murdered. This is insane. This university is supposed to be the safest place in the city. Who could even do something like that? It has to be some kind of professional assassin, right? Someone heartless and terrifying." Naruto sat perfectly still. He didn't blink. He didn't gasp. He was currently staring at a small smudge on the desk, his mind drifting. Flashback to 2:00 AM Naruto, dressed in full tactical black, silently drops from a skylight into a luxury penthouse. With 2 muffled thuds from a silenced pistol, he neutralizes the directors, the primary financiers of the dust smuggling ring. He wipes his prints, resets the security system, and vanishes into the rain like a shadow. Back in the classroom, Naruto let out a long, loud yawn. He slumped further into his chair, looking like he was struggling to stay awake during a particularly boring weather report. "It was probably the wind," Naruto muttered flatly, not even looking at Sakura. "The wind?" Sakura hissed, her face turning a bright shade of indignant pink. "Naruto, they were assassinated. You can't just blame the weather. Don't you have any empathy? Someone out there is a cold-blooded killer, and you're acting like you're bored by it. I bet the person who did it is a monster with no soul who probably eats raw meat and sleeps in a coffin." Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, lemon-flavored candy. He unwrapped it slowly, the crinkling of the plastic sounding deafening in the tense silence. He popped it into his mouth and chewed it with a rhythmic, mechanical crunch. "Maybe they just had a very bad day," Naruto offered, his voice devoid of any emotion. Sakura stared at him, her mouth agape. "A bad day? You are unbelievable. How can you be so detached? People are dying, there's a killer on the loose, and you're sitting here eating candy and making jokes about the wind. Honestly, sometimes I think you're more robotic than the computers in the lab." Naruto didn't respond. He was too busy wondering if he had left his tactical boots in the dryer this morning. He felt a slight itch on his neck, a minor scratch from the penthouse's laser grid, but he merely scratched it with a bored expression, looking for all the world like a student who was annoyed by the lack of caffeine in his system. A few rows down, Ino was watching him. She wasn't scared of the murders, she was fascinated by his reaction. "He's not even flinching," she thought, her eyes narrowing. "Either he's the bravest man I've ever seen, or he's so arrogant he thinks he's invincible." Asuma sighed, noticing Naruto's lack of engagement. "Mr. Uzumaki, do you have any thoughts on the profile of such a killer?" Naruto looked up, his blue eyes meeting Asuma's. For a split second, a flash of something sharp and lethal flickered in his gaze, the look of a man who knew exactly how much pressure it took to snap a collarbone. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, replaced by his signature look of profound, sleepy indifference. "I think," Naruto said slowly, "that the killer probably wants everyone to stop talking so he can get some sleep." The class erupted into a mix of nervous laughter and frustrated groans. Sakura buried her face in her hands, muttering about how she had chosen the most socially dysfunctional project in history, while the monster in the hoodie simply leaned back, closed his eyes, and started a mental countdown to his next extraction point. The lecture ended, and Naruto wasted no time. He was out of his seat before Professor Asuma could even close his laptop, his mind already shifting back to the shadows of the mission. But as he reached the hallway, a familiar force caught his arm. Sakura lunged forward, grabbing his hand with a firm, proprietary grip. In her haste to keep him from vanishing, she pulled his hand close, tucking it firmly under her arm so that his knuckles pressed against the soft, warm curve of her side, right beneath her breast. Naruto stopped dead, his body tensing. He looked down at his trapped hand, then up at Sakura with a look of pure, clinical confusion. "Why do you keep doing this?" he asked, his voice flat but edged with a hint of genuine bewilderment. "It is an inefficient way to walk, and the physical proximity is unnecessary for communication." Sakura's face flushed a soft pink, but she didn't let go. She looked at him with a mix of defiance and fondness. Don't think anything bad, you blockhead. I'm just making sure you don't disappear. You're like a ghost. If I don't hold on, you'll just melt into the walls. Besides, I want to show you around. You need to see more than just the back of a lecture hall. Naruto sighed, a long, weary sound of a man who had survived interrogations but couldn't survive a persistent college student. He let her lead him, his hands still pinned in that awkward, intimate position. Look over there, Sakura whispered as they approached a row of high-end, personalized lockers. I want you to meet someone. Not everyone here is like Ino or Kiba. A young woman stood by her locker, which was decorated with subtle, elegant floral engravings. She was breathtaking in a completely different way than the other girls. Her hair was a deep, midnight indigo, and her eyes were a rare, shimmering lavender, clear and kind. She moved with a quiet, graceful modesty that seemed to radiate a gentle light. That's Hinata Hyuga, Sakura said, her voice softening. Her family is one of the wealthiest in the country. They practically own the city's infrastructure, but she's the kindest person you'll ever meet. Truly the sweetest girl in this entire university. Naruto watched Hinata. He didn't see just a pretty girl. He saw someone whose pulse was steady, whose movements were deliberate and without malice. For a brief second, his icy blue eyes softened as he analyzed her. She was a rarity, a person without a hidden agenda. Hinata noticed them and smiled, a small, timid expression that reached her eyes. Oh, hello Sakura, she said, her voice like a soft melody. Sakura let go of Naruto's hand and rushed forward to give Hinata a warm, genuine hug. Hinata! Good to see you. I wanted to introduce the new student everyone is talking about. Hinata stepped back, her cheeks turning a light shade of rose as she looked at Naruto. She slowly reached out her hand, offering it to him in a traditional, polite gesture. It's nice to meet you, Naruto-kun, she whispered. Naruto stared at her hand. To him, physical contact was usually a prelude to a takedown or a search. He hesitated, his mind calculating the risk of social engagement. But looking into her honest, lavender eyes, he felt a strange, unfamiliar sense of calm. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he reached out and took her hand. His grip was firm but surprisingly gentle. Naruto, he said simply. The contact lasted only a second, but Hinata's blush deepened. She gave a small, respectful bow to them both. I have to get to the music wing now. It was lovely meeting you. She turned and walked away, her movements as quiet as a falling leaf. Naruto watched her go for a moment longer than usual, his brow furrowed in thought. See? Sakura said, nudging him with her elbow, a triumphant look on her face. Not everyone is an enemy. Now come on, we have more of the campus to cover. The library of Konoha University was a cathedral of silence, filled with the scent of old parchment, expensive leather bindings, and the frantic energy of students trying to cram for midterms. Sunlight streamed through the massive stained glass windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing over the long, mahogany tables. Naruto sat in the furthest corner of the east wing, his hoodie pulled low. To anyone passing by, he looked like a struggling student staring at a textbook on forensic ballistics. In reality, his eyes were scanning a micro-tablet hidden inside the book, decoding encrypted manifests from the shipping docks. Sakura sat across from him, chewing on the end of her pen, looking at him with a mix of concentration and wonder. You know, Naruto, for someone who says they don't have dreams, you sure spend a lot of time studying the mechanics of crime. You're actually quite diligent. Naruto didn't look up. Information is the only thing that doesn't lie. Before Sakura could respond, the heavy silence of the library was punctured by the rhythmic, sharp clack-clack-clack of designer heels. Ino Yamanaka marched through the aisles like she was walking a Paris runway. She was carrying a thick, gold-embossed volume on advanced criminal psychology, a smug, confident smile playing on her lips. She ignored the dozen glares from students shushing her and headed straight for Naruto's table. With a flourish, she pulled out the chair directly next to him, her lavender perfume hitting the air like a floral explosion. Hello again, handsome, Ino purred, leaning in so close that her blonde hair brushed against his shoulder. She slammed her book onto the table, though it made almost no sound because she was holding it so delicately. I've been struggling with this chapter for hours. It's just so complex. Since you're the star of the department now, maybe you could explain this theory to me? Sakura's eyes narrowed to slits. Ino, it's not the time. We're actually trying to work here, not stage a photo shoot. Go find a tutor if you're so confused. Ino didn't even look at her. She waved a hand dismissively. Oh, hush, Sakura. Let the grown-ups talk. I'm sure Naruto doesn't mind helping a lady in distress. She shifted her weight, pressing her arm against Naruto's and looking at him with wide, pleading eyes. Please, Naruto? Just this one page. I can't make head or tail of it. Naruto finally shifted his gaze from his tablet to the book she had laid out. He stared at it for 3 long, agonizing seconds. The silence grew heavy. Ino held her breath, her heart racing as she waited for him to finally give in to her charm. You're right, Naruto said, his voice flat and deadpan. It is complex. Ino's smile widened. I knew you'd understand. But Naruto interrupted, it's usually much easier to understand if you don't read it upside down. The silence that followed was absolute. Sakura leaned forward, squinting at the book. Then, she let out a loud, snorting laugh that echoed through the vaulted ceiling. Oh my God! She's right. Look at the spine. Ino looked down. Her face went from ivory to a violent, glowing shade of magenta in less than a second. The title of the book, Advanced Criminal Psychology, was indeed facing toward Naruto, meaning the text was completely inverted from her perspective. She had been so focused on her pose that she hadn't even checked if the book was right side up. I was testing you, Ino stammered, her voice rising in pitch. You failed, Naruto said. He closed his own book, stood up, and tucked his tablet into his pocket. Next time, try a picture book. It's harder to get those wrong. He walked away without a backward glance, leaving Ino sitting there with an upside-down book and a shattered ego. The library, usually a place of hushed whispers, erupted into suppressed giggles and pointed fingers. Sakura was practically vibrating with joy. Nice test, Ino. Maybe try a coloring book next? SHHHH. A sharp, authoritative hiss cut through the laughter. Shizen, the head librarian, appeared from behind a shelf, her glasses perched on the tip of her nose and her pet pig, Tauntaun, tucked under her arm. She looked at the chaotic table with deep disapproval. Miss Yamanaka, Shizen whispered shouted, her face stern. This is a place of study, not a comedy club. You are making a scene and distracting the serious students. Pick up your book, the right way, and leave. Now. But Ino sputtered, looking at the laughing faces around her. Out. Shizen pointed toward the exit. Ino snatched her upside-down book, her heels clicking frantically as she retreated in total disgrace. She burst through the library doors, the sound of Sakura's laughter following her all the way to the parking lot. Deep in the shadows of the hallway, Naruto watched her go, a small, almost invisible twitch of his lip being the only sign that he had found the situation remotely amusing. Variable-handled, he thought, before disappearing back into the mission. The Yamanaka estate was a fortress of elegance and floral perfection, nestled in the city's most exclusive district. But inside the master suite on the 2nd floor, the atmosphere was anything but serene. The air was thick with the scent of spilled expensive perfume and the lingering heat of a temper tantrum that had been brewing since the library doors closed. Ino Yamanaka was pacing her room like a caged tigress. Her emerald green dress, which had felt like a suit of armor that morning, now felt like a straitjacket of humiliation. She reached for a crystal perfume bottle on her vanity, a limited edition scent that cost more than a mid-range sedan, and hurled it against the far wall. The glass shattered into 1,000 glittering diamonds, the fragrance of crushed jasmine and sandalwood filling the room. I hate him! Ino shrieked, her voice cracking with a mixture of rage and wounded pride. She grabbed a silk pillow and began pummeling her plush velvet headboard. I hate his stupid golden hair. I hate his cold, blue deadfish eyes. I hate everything about him. She threw herself onto her bed, burying her face in the covers, her legs kicking out in a fit of pure, unadulterated frustration. In her mind, the image of Naruto's bored, indifferent face replayed on a loop. Asterisk next time, try a picture book. Asterisk the words felt like hot needles under her skin. She, Ino Yamanaka, the girl who had been voted most desired 3 years in a row, had been treated like a brainless illiterate in front of the entire university. A soft, rhythmic knock echoed at the door, followed by the sound of it creaking open. Ino, darling? Is everything all right in here? Ino's mother, a woman of sharp features and effortless grace, stepped into the room. She surveyed the wreckage, the broken glass, the upturned chair, and her daughter face down on the bed, with a look of practiced patience. She had seen these storms before, but never one this violent. It sounds like a demolition crew is working in here, her mother said, stepping carefully over a puddle of perfume. What on earth has happened to put you in such a state? Ino flipped over, her hair a wild, tangled mess around her flushed face. Her eyes were red-masked with fury. It's him, Mother! It's that idiot at the university. Her mother raised a perfectly groomed eyebrow. An idiot? I thought you said everyone at Konoha you was a lapdog or a fan. Who is this person who has managed to break your composure so thoroughly? He's a nobody. A transfer student. An arrogant, rude, socially stunted, blonde thing. Ino screamed, sitting up and clutching her knees to her chest. He doesn't look at me when I talk. He ignores my beauty. He treats me like I'm a nuisance. And today he made me look like a fool in the library. Her mother walked over to the vanity, picking up a stray earring. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. He ignores you? That's new. Usually, you're complaining that men won't leave you alone. Isn't this what you wanted? A challenge? It's not a challenge. It's an insult. Ino snapped, her voice dropping into a dangerous, low hiss. He doesn't care about my family name, he doesn't care about my status, and he definitely doesn't care about how I look. He's a wall of ice, and no matter what I do, I can't even get him to blink. She grabbed a hairbrush and threw it toward the mirror, though it missed and hit the floor with a dull thud. He's an absolute fool, and I am going to make his life a living nightmare. I won't stop until he's begging for my forgiveness on his knees. Her mother sighed, shaking her head. Be careful, Ino. Obsession is a dangerous perfume. You might find that the more you try to break him, the more you end up breaking yourself. I don't care, Ino yelled, falling back onto her pillows and staring at the ceiling with wide, manic eyes. I'll break him. I'll find his weakness. Everyone has one. And when I do, I'm going to shatter that unshakable mask of his into pieces. As her mother quietly exited the room, Ino lay in the dark, the scent of broken glass and jasmine surrounding her. Her mind was already spinning, moving away from the humiliation and toward a cold, calculated plan. If he wouldn't be her fan, he would be her victim. And in Ino's world, there was a very thin line between the two. The campus gym was a sprawling complex of glass, chrome, and high-performance equipment that looked more like an Olympic training facility than a college recreation center. The air was climate-controlled and filtered, humming with the sound of high-end treadmills and the rhythmic squeak of sneakers on polished hardwood. Naruto walked in, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his black hoodie. He felt exposed in such a wide-open space. His eyes instinctively tracked the exits, the ceiling beams, and the blind spots of the security cameras. To him, this wasn't a place for fitness, it was a tactical environment. Sakura bounced on the balls of her feet next to him, radiating energy. She was already wearing a light tracksuit, but she was clutching a gym bag. I love this place. There's nothing like a good workout to clear your head after a long lecture. You look like you could use some movement, Naruto. You're always so stiff. Naruto gave her a sideways glance. I move plenty. Standing like a statue doesn't count, she teased, pointing toward the locker rooms. Wait for me here by the courts. I'm going to change into my gym gear. Don't you dare vanish while I'm gone. She disappeared into the changing area, leaving Naruto standing alone near the edge of the main basketball court. He leaned against a padded pillar, staring blankly at the floor, counting the seconds until he could leave. So, you're the one everyone is whispering about. The voice was cool, arrogant, and carried a sharp edge of superiority. Naruto didn't move his head, but his eyes shifted to the left. Walking toward him was Sasuke Uchiha. He was the golden boy of the university's elite, pale, dark-eyed, and possessing a brooding handsomeness that rivaled Naruto's own, though Sasuke's was fueled by a sense of inherited royalty. He wore a designer athletic tank top that showed off his lean, athletic build, and he bounced a basketball with a casual, practiced rhythm. Sasuke stopped a few feet away, scanning Naruto with a look of pure disdain. A transfer student with a bad attitude and a habit of causing scenes in the cafeteria. You look soft, Naruto. Like a pampered kid who thinks a hoodie and a scowl make him dangerous. Naruto didn't blink. Leave me alone, Uchiha. I'm not interested in your ego. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the ball. Ego? This is my court. Around here, you're either a player or an obstacle. And I don't like obstacles. You think you're tough because you threw a table at Kiba? Kiba is a clown. Why don't you try someone who actually knows how to move? Sasuke spun the ball on his finger, a mocking smirk playing on his lips. Let's see what you've actually got. 1-on-1. First to 10 baskets. If you win, I'll stop bothering you. If I win, you admit you're a fraud in front of everyone here. No, Naruto said flatly. It's a waste of energy. Scared? Sasuke taunted, stepping closer. Or maybe you're just worried that without your mysterious act, you're nothing? Before Naruto could respond with another rejection, the locker room door swung open. Sakura stepped out, and the atmosphere in the gym seemed to stall. She had changed into a pair of high-waisted, form-fitting black spandex leggings and a matching sports bra that left very little to the imagination. Her skin was glowing, and the outfit accentuated every curve of her athletic frame. She looked vibrant, powerful, and undeniably striking. She walked over, noticing the tension between the two men. "What's going on here?" "Sasuke, leave him alone." "I'm just offering him a challenge, Sakura," Sasuke said, his eyes flicking to her for a split second before returning to Naruto. "But your friend here is too busy hiding in his hoodie to take it." Sakura looked at the basketball, then at Sasuke's smug face, and finally at Naruto's bored expression. A mischievous glint appeared in her emerald eyes. She wanted to see what Naruto was capable of outside of a cafeteria brawl. "A challenge? That sounds perfect," Sakura chirped, stepping between them. "I didn't agree," Naruto muttered. "Oh, hush, Naruto." Sakura turned back to Sasuke, her hands on her hips, her provocative outfit making her look like the queen of the gym. "He'll do it. In fact, I'll personally make sure he plays. It's about time someone humbled you on this court, Sasuke." Naruto looked at her, his jaw tightening. "Sakura, I said no. I don't play games." "You do now," she countered, grabbing his arm and pulling him toward the center of the court. "I've already agreed for you. Consider it a favor to me. Show him that being new doesn't mean being weak." Naruto let out a long, frustrated sigh, his eyes tracking the movement of the ball in Sasuke's hand. He realized he was trapped, caught between an arrogant rival and a persistent girl in spandex. "Fine," Naruto whispered, his voice turning cold and dangerous as he stepped onto the hardwood. "But don't say I didn't warn you." The news of a showdown between the legendary Sasuke Uchiha and the mysterious newcomer, Naruto, moved through the gym like a physical shockwave. Within minutes, the bleachers were packed with students who had abandoned their own workouts to witness the collision of the university's two most formidable icons. The atmosphere was electric, thick with the scent of floor wax and the frantic energy of a crowd sensing blood in the water. Sasuke stood at the center of the court, the undisputed king of the hardwood. He had stripped down to a sleek, navy blue athletic jersey that highlighted his lean, wiry musculature. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his gaze was sharp, arrogant, and predatory. He moved with the fluid confidence of a man who had never known a day of athletic defeat. Then Naruto stepped out from the sideline. He had removed his heavy black hoodie, revealing a simple, sleeveless white compression shirt and dark athletic shorts. The contrast was startling. His skin was strikingly pale, almost like polished marble, looking stark and flawless under the bright gym lights. Every muscle in his arms and shoulders was defined with a terrifying, functional precision, not the bulky muscle of a bodybuilder, but the corded, lethal strength of a professional operative. He looked bored, his eyes half-lidded and his jaw set in a line of profound annoyance. He didn't look at the crowd, he didn't care about the cheers. He looked like a man who was being forced to perform a task far below his pay grade. "Look at him," a girl in the front row whispered, her face flushing as she took in Naruto's physique. "He looks like a statue come to life." "Go get him, Naruto!" Sakura screamed from the sideline, jumping up and down. Her form-fitting gym gear drew as many eyes as the players, but her focus was entirely on the blonde. "Show him what you're made of. Don't let that Uchiha ego win." Sasuke let out a dry, condescending laugh, spinning the ball on one finger as he faced Naruto at the half-court line. "Nice of you to join us, Ghost. I was starting to think you'd run back to the library. Try not to trip over your own feet in front of your little fan club." Naruto didn't respond. He simply stepped into his defensive stance, his movements so sudden and balanced that it felt as if he had transitioned from a student to a predator in a single heartbeat. His cerulean eyes locked onto the ball, tracking its movement with a terrifying, mechanical focus. "Ready to lose, Naruto?" Sasuke smirked, his eyes flashing with a competitive fire. "Just start the clock," Naruto replied, his voice a low, cold rumble that cut through the noise of the cheering students. "I have things to do." Asuma, who had appeared on the sidelines with a whistle in his mouth and a knowing glint in his eye, stepped onto the court. The crowd went silent, the air in the gym feeling heavy and thin. Asuma raised the ball between the two rivals. Sasuke tensed like a coiled spring, his eyes fixed on the leather. Naruto remained perfectly still, a calm, icy void in the middle of the storm. The whistle shrieked. The ball left Asuma's hands, soaring into the air toward the glass ceiling. The battle for the university's soul had officially begun. The whistle's shrill blast was the spark that ignited the powder keg. As the ball reached its apex between the two rivals, Sasuke exploded upward with the grace of a professional athlete, his fingers brushing the leather first. With a sharp flick, he tipped it toward his own side, landing with a light, arrogant thud before immediately darting forward to reclaim it. the crowd roared. The Prince of Konoha was in his element. Sasuke began a dazzling display of ball handling, the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of the basketball against the hardwood sounding like a heartbeat. He moved in a blur, his navy jersey snapping as he executed a series of lightning-fast crossovers. He looked at Naruto with a mocking glint in his eyes, expecting the newcomer to be stumbling over his feet. "Keep up, transfer student," Sasuke taunted, suddenly driving hard to the right, then spinning back with a fluidity that left most defenders in the dust. But Naruto didn't overextend. He didn't even look like he was trying hard. He stayed centered, his feet moving in short, economical bursts of speed that kept him perfectly in front of Sasuke. His pale skin was already glistening with a thin sheen of sweat, making him look like a lethal, porcelain phantom. Every time Sasuke tried to break past, Naruto's chest was there, a solid, unmovable wall. "What's the matter, Sasuke?" Sakura yelled from the sidelines, her hands cupped around her mouth. "Can't find a way through? Maybe you need a map." Frustration flickered across Sasuke's face. He pulled back, suddenly jumping for a long-range three-pointer. It was his signature move, the Uchiha fadeaway. Naruto didn't jump. He simply stepped forward, his hand snapping up like a viper's strike. He didn't block the ball, he simply brushed it with his fingertips, just enough to alter its trajectory. The ball hit the rim with a hollow clank and bounced away. The gym went silent for a heartbeat before erupting into a deafening cheer. "My turn," Naruto said, his voice a cold, low vibration. He retrieved the ball and began his drive. Unlike Sasuke's flamboyant style, Naruto's movements were terrifyingly direct. He didn't waste energy on tricks. He moved in straight lines, his power so explosive that each step sounded like a small detonation on the floor. Sasuke tried to steal the ball, reaching in with a desperate swipe, but Naruto executed a behind-the-back dribble so fast it was almost invisible to the naked eye. Before Sasuke could recover, Naruto was at the hoop. He didn't just lay it in, he rose into the air, his head nearly level with the rim, and hammered the ball home with a ferocious, two-handed dunk that made the entire backboard vibrate. The score was 1-0. He just dunked on Sasuke, a student in the front row whispered in disbelief. For the next 10 minutes, the gym was a theater of war. Sasuke played with a desperate, burning intensity, scoring 3 baskets through sheer willpower and technical skill. But Naruto was a machine. Every time Sasuke scored, Naruto responded with a display of raw, overwhelming athleticism that seemed inhuman. Naruto's white shirt was now damp, clinging to his defined torso, and his golden hair was damp and messy. He looked less like a student and more like an apex predator playing with his prey. By the time the score reached 9-9, the crowd was standing on the bleachers, screaming. Sasuke was gasping for air, his face flushed and his jersey soaked. Naruto, however, was barely breathing heavy. His icy blue eyes were fixed on Sasuke, his expression still masked in that same profound, terrifying boredom. This isn't possible," Sasuke panted, wiping sweat from his eyes. "Who are you?" Naruto didn't answer. He had the ball at the top of the key. He looked at Sasuke, then at the basket, and finally at Sakura, who was watching with her breath held. With a sudden burst of speed, Naruto drove toward the basket one last time. Sasuke threw his entire body into a block, jumping with everything he had left. But in midair, Naruto shifted his weight, floating for a fraction of a second longer than physically possible. He switched the ball to his left hand and finessed it off the glass with a gentle, insulting touch. The ball circled the rim once-twice and fell through. 10-9. The gym exploded into absolute chaos. Students flooded toward the court, shouting Naruto's name. Sasuke stood under the hoop, his head bowed, staring at his hands in shock. He had been beaten at his own game, in his own gym, by a man who looked like he'd rather be taking a nap. Sakura sprinted onto the court, her face beaming with a wild, infectious joy. She didn't care about the cameras or the crowds. She threw her arms around Naruto's neck, her sports bra-clad chest pressing against his damp shirt as she jumped. "You did it! You actually did it! You humbled the great Uchiha!" Naruto stood there, his arms at his sides, looking down at Sakura with a look of extreme discomfort. "Can you let go? You're getting sweat on me." "I don't care." Sakura laughed, squeezing him tighter. In the corner of the gym, hidden behind the throng of fans, Ino Yamanaka stood perfectly still. She hadn't cheered. She hadn't screamed. She had watched every second of the match, her eyes fixed on Naruto's every move. She saw the power in his stride, the coldness in his eyes, and the way he completely dismantled the university's elite without a single smile. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, not with rage this time, but with a new, terrifyingly intense fascination. He's not just a student, she whispered to herself, her fingers tracing the edge of her gym bag. He's something else entirely. The diva was no longer just angry. She was intrigued. And in the dangerous world of Konoha University, that was far more dangerous for Naruto than any basketball game. The steam from the showers had barely cleared when Naruto emerged from the locker rooms. He was back in his signature dark hoodie and jeans, his damp blonde hair messily plastered to his forehead. He looked exhausted, not from the physical exertion of crushing Sasuke, but from the sheer social weight of the day. All he wanted was the quiet of his apartment, and a mission debrief. As he pushed open the heavy glass doors of the athletic wing, a flash of lavender and gold caught his eye. Ino Yamanaka was waiting. She had traded her emerald dress for a high-performance, skin-tight athletic set, a pair of lilac yoga pants that fit like a second skin and a matching crop top that left her midriff bare. She had tied her hair into a high, sleek ponytail, and she looked like a fitness model stepped off a magazine cover. As Naruto approached, Ino suddenly let out a soft, melodic "oh," and collapsed onto a nearby padded bench, her leg extending awkwardly as she gripped her thigh. "And Naruto," she gasped, her voice reaching a pitch of perfect, fragile vulnerability. She looked up at him, her eyes wide and shimmering with feigned distress. "My leg, I think I have a terrible cramp. A Charlie horse. It's absolutely agonizing." Naruto stopped 3 feet away, his expression as flat as a dial tone. "You should see a doctor," he said simply. "No, no. A doctor is too far," Ino purred, shifting her position so that her leg was highlighted by the overhead lights. She looked at him with a predatory sweetness. "It just needs to be massaged out. You're so strong, I saw you on the court. Surely you could help a girl out? Just put your hands right here and work the tension out." In her mind, Ino was already celebrating. There's no way he can resist this, she thought, her heart racing with a mix of triumph and nerves. I'm lying here, vulnerable, in the most flattering outfit I own. Once he touches me, the ice will melt. He'll be just like the others. Naruto looked at her leg, then at her face. He saw the calculated shimmer in her eyes and the way her pain seemed to disappear whenever she thought he wasn't looking. Instead of leaning down, Naruto turned his head toward the open office of the gym's head athletic trainer. "Hey! Coach Baki!" Naruto shouted, his voice echoing through the hallway. "We've got a medical emergency out here." Ino's eyes went wide. "Wait, what?" "No, Naruto, you don't need to." Out of the office emerged Coach Baki, a massive, barrel-chested man with a thick, grisly beard that covered half his chest and arms like a forest of coarse hair. He was wearing a sweat-stained tank top and smelled strongly of menthol rub and old whistles. "A cramp? Out of the way, son! I've been treating muscle spasms since before you were born," Baki roared, his voice like a landslide. He began vigorously rubbing his huge, hairy hands together, creating a terrifying friction sound. "This girl says her thigh is seized up," Naruto said, stepping back and gesturing toward Ino with a bored wave of his hand. "She needs a deep tissue release. Don't go easy on her, coach. She looks like she's in a lot of pain." "I got her!" Baki shouted, lunging toward the bench like a hungry bear. "Lay back, little lady. This is gonna sting a bit, but I'll get that knot out if it's the last thing I do." Ino watched in horror as the massive, hairy trainer descended upon her. She looked at Naruto, pleading for help, but he was already halfway to the exit. "Good luck with the recovery," Naruto called out over his shoulder, his voice completely deadpan. "Wait! Naruto! No! Stop!" Ino screamed, but it was too late. Baki's giant, sandpaper rough hands clamped down on her leg with the force of a hydraulic press. "Here comes the healer!" he bellowed. "Agagay! Get him off me! It burns! It burns!" The sounds of Ino's high-pitched shrieks and Baki's enthusiastic professional grunts echoed throughout the entire athletic wing. Students stopped to stare as the queen of the campus was aggressively massaged by a man who looked like a Himalayan yeti. Naruto stepped out into the cool evening air, the sound of Ino's distant screaming finally fading. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a lemon candy, and unwrapped it with a faint, almost invisible smirk. Mission objective: avoid distractions. Status: successful. Ino emerged from the athletic wing looking like she had survived a natural disaster. Her high, sleek ponytail was now a frayed mess, and her skin was still tingling from the expert treatment of Coach Baki. She had changed back into a designer sundress, but her usual grace was replaced by a rigid, trembling fury. "I am going to destroy him," she hissed to the empty hallway, her knuckles white as she gripped her handbag. I am going to make him wish he was never born. As she rounded the corner toward the main administrative hall, she saw a scene that made her blood turn to liquid nitrogen. Hinata Hyuga was standing by the heavy mahogany doors, looking flustered. A stack of thick music folders and textbooks had slipped from her arms, scattering across the floor. She was kneeling, her midnight blue hair veiling her face as she reached for them with trembling hands. Before Ino could even enjoy the girl's misfortune, a shadow fell over the hallway. Naruto walked into the frame. Ino stopped in her tracks, hiding behind a marble pillar to watch. She expected him to do exactly what he had done to her, walk over the books, offer a cold remark, and keep moving. Her heart hammered in anticipation of him treating the sweetheart of the university with the same disdain he showed everyone else. But Naruto didn't walk past. He stopped. Without a word, he dropped to one knee. His movements were fluid and surprisingly careful as he began gathering Hinata's papers. He didn't just push them into a pile. He aligned the edges of the folders and stacked the books by size. "Oh, and Naruto-kun," Hinata whispered, her face turning a deep, vivid scarlet. You don't have to." "It's fine," Naruto said. His voice was still low and flat, but it lacked the razor-sharp edge of irritation he used with Ino. He stood up, holding the stack of books easily in one hand. As Hinata stood, looking unsteady, Naruto reached out with his free hand and pushed the heavy exit door open, holding it wide for her. He waited patiently, his gaze steady, as she gathered her courage to walk through. "Thank you so much," Hinata murmured, bowing her head as she hurried past him. Ino felt like she had been slapped. The fury that erupted in her chest was so hot it made her dizzy. "He helped her?" she screamed internally. He knelt for her? "He held the door for the shy girl but told me to pick up my own books. Am I invisible? Am I not 10 times the woman she is?" The jealousy was a physical weight. It wasn't that she liked Naruto, she told herself she hated him, but the fact that he chose to show kindness to Hinata while treating Ino like a nuisance was the ultimate insult to her social standing. "Miss Ino? Excuse me, Lady Ino?" A scrawny student with thick glasses and a nervous twitch stepped into her path. He was holding his phone out like a shield. "I sent you a DM on Instagram last night. About the gala? I was wondering if you'd seen it or if you had an answer?" As he spoke, his eyes didn't stay on her face. They drifted downward, lingering on the neckline of her dress with a pathetic, hungry gaze that made Ino's skin crawl. Ino's eyes snapped toward him, glowing with a predatory, lethal light. She didn't see a suitor, she saw a punching bag for her redirected rage. "My answer?" Ino asked, her voice a terrifying, quiet purr. Slap! The sound of her palm connecting with his cheek was like a gunshot. The boy's glasses flew off his face, and he stumbled back, clutching his jaw in pure shock. "My answer is that you are a disgusting little worm," Ino spat, stepping over him as he hit the floor. "Don't ever look at me again. Don't speak my name. You're lucky I don't have my father's security team erase you from the student registry." She didn't look back as he whimpered. She didn't care about the onlookers. She marched toward the exit, her eyes fixed on the spot where Naruto had disappeared. "You think you've won, Naruto," she whispered, her voice trembling with an obsessive resolve. "You think you can pick and choose who deserves your attention. But I am Ino Yamanaka. I don't lose. I'm going to find the crack in that armor of yours, and when I do, I'm going to make sure you never look at another girl, especially Hinata, ever again." The moonlight bled through the blinds of Naruto's sparse, military-grade apartment, casting long shadows over the maps and decrypted files scattered across his desk. He sat in the darkness, the blue light of his encrypted satellite phone illuminating a face that looked more weary than a man of 20 should ever be. He tapped a sequence of keys and waited. The line clicked open. "Report," a lazy, muffled voice came through the speaker. Naruto could hear the distinct sound of a page turning, likely the latest volume of a questionable romance novel. "I want out, Kakashi," Naruto rasped, leaning back until his chair groaned. "This mission is a disaster. I've neutralized 2 directors, mapped the dust distribution network, and secured the perimeter. But the environmental variables are becoming untenable." "Oh?" Kakashi Hataki's voice took on a playful, irritating lilt. "By environmental variables, do you mean the pink-haired girl who treats you like a science project, or the blonde heiress who currently wants to either marry you or murder you? I've seen the campus feeds, Naruto. You're quite the celebrity. The goddess of the university getting a deep tissue massage from Coach Baki? That was inspired. I laughed for 10 minutes. "It's not funny," Naruto hissed, his jaw tightening. "Sakura won't stop touching my arm," Hinata keeps turning into a tomato every time I breathe in her direction, and Ino is stalking me like a predator. I was trained to dismantle syndicates, not manage a harem of obsessed civilians. That's where you're wrong, Naruto, Kakashi chuckled. In the world of high-stakes espionage, social lubrication is a weapon. You have the perfect cover. Nobody suspects the brooding heartbreaker of being an elite operative. But you're lacking in the most important department of deep cover work. Which is? Sexual charisma, Kakashi said flatly. You're as cold as a morgue slab. If you want these women to give you the information you need without questioning your background, you need to lean into the tension. You need to understand the physics of the bedroom as well as you understand the physics of a headshot. Naruto blinked, a look of genuine, innocent bewilderment crossing his face despite his icy exterior. What are you talking about? I understand biology. I know where the vital organs are. I'm talking about asterisk intimacy, Naruto. Kakashi groaned. For example, when Sakura holds your hand, don't just stand there like a statue. Pull her closer. Use the whisper in the ear technique. Low frequency, warm breath. It triggers a chemical response. And as for Ino, she's a dominant personality. She wants to be conquered. If you want her to stop being a nuisance, you have to dominate the space. Pin her against a wall. Make her forget her own name. Use the over-the-shoulder gaze. It's a 90% success rate for information extraction. Naruto stared at the wall, his brow furrowing in confusion. Why would pinning someone to a wall help me find the dust shipments? That seems like an inefficient way to conduct an interrogation. And what position are you even talking about? Tactical or? Naruto, you're a genius at killing, but you're a virgin at living, Kakashi sighed, the sound of his book closing. Look, if a woman like Ino gets you alone, don't talk about physics. Talk about her. Use your hands not to strike, but to guide. Lower your center of gravity, maintain eye contact, and if she moves in, you take the lead. It's about asterisk conquest, not just combat. I don't understand how sex enters into the mission parameters, Naruto muttered, sounding genuinely frustrated. Is this a requirement? Do I need to file a report on positional effectiveness? Kakashi burst into a fit of laughter. Please, for the love of the agency, do not file a report on that. Just try to be human, Naruto. Use that handsome face for something other than scaring people. And remember, if Ino corners you again, don't call the coach. Call your instincts. My instincts tell me to use a smoke bomb and exit through the window, Naruto replied. Try the neck kiss instead. It's quieter, Kakashi joked before hanging up. Naruto stared at the dead phone, his mind reeling. He looked down at his hands that could disassemble a rifle in 6 seconds, and wondered how they were supposed to guide a girl like Ino without breaking her. Stupid mission, Naruto whispered, popping a lemon candy into his mouth. Stupid Kakashi. Stupid women. He closed his eyes, but instead of tactical maps, he kept seeing the way Ino looked at him in the gym, and the way Sakura's side felt against his hand. He groaned, burying his face in his hands. For the first time in his career, Naruto felt like he was the one being hunted. The morning sun poured through the high windows of the lecture hall, but the atmosphere inside was thick with a different kind of heat. Naruto sat with his chin resting on his palm, his blue eyes fixed on the chalkboard with a vacancy that suggested he was calculating ballistics rather than listening to Professor Asuma's lecture on sociology. Sakura, however, was far from focused on the lesson. She leaned in close, her shoulder pressing against Naruto's. So Naruto, she whispered, her voice buzzing with excitement. You've heard about the Founders Gala this weekend, right? It's the biggest event of the year. Everyone dresses up, I'm talking tuxedos and designer gowns. Naruto didn't even turn his head. Sounds inefficient. Why gather in one place just to wear uncomfortable clothes and consume overpriced sugar? Sakura's eye twitched. It's not inefficient, you robot. It's a tradition. I've actually never gone with a date before. I've always been too busy with my studies. She bit her lip, looking at him with a hopeful, shimmering gaze. A girl's first gala should be special. And since you're new and don't know anyone else, you should definitely pick someone you're comfortable with. Someone like me? Right, Naruto? She leaned her weight against him, her arm hooking around his as she looked up at him with a provocative, playful smile. It's a trivial waste of time, Naruto stated flatly. Go by yourself. You'll save money on transportation. The rejection was so blunt that Sakura snapped. Without thinking, she reached up and grabbed a handful of his spiky blonde hair, giving it a sharp, frustrated tug. It is not trivial. You have the emotional depth of a teaspoon. You're going, and you're going with me. Ouch, Naruto muttered, his expression unchanged even as his head was jerked to the side. Violence is also an inefficient form of persuasion. The commotion caught the attention of the entire room. Professor Asuma stopped mid-sentence, his chalk hovering over the board. He turned around, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose as he stared at the pair. Miss Haruno, Asuma said, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. Is there something so urgent that it requires you to perform scalp surgery on Mr. Uzumaki during my lecture? The class went dead quiet. Sakura froze, her hand still tangled in Naruto's hair, her face rapidly turning the color of a ripe strawberry. She slowly let go, laughing nervously. Oh, Professor! No, I was just helping him with a stray hair. He had a very stubborn hair. Naruto sat up straight, adjusting his collar. He looked directly at Asuma with a mask of perfect, bored innocence. Actually, Professor, she was harassing me. She's trying to force me to escort her to a dance against my will. I believe it counts as workplace, or rather classroom, harassment. The room erupted. A few students whistled, and a wave of thunderous laughter broke out across the hall. Sakura looked like she wanted to melt into the floorboards, her hands covering her flaming face. A few rows down, Ino Yamanaka's pen snapped in her hand. Her knuckles were white, and her eyes were fixed on the back of Sakura's head with a murderous intensity. That pink-haired brat actually tried to claim him in open court, Ino thought, her breath hitching in rage. Asterisk, and he's making a joke of it? I'll kill her. I'll actually kill her, asterisk. Professor Asuma, however, was not amused. He folded his arms, his expression turning stern. Miss Haruno, I am disappointed. This is a place of higher learning, not a matchmaking service. Harassing your fellow students, especially with physical contact, is completely contrary to the ethics and moral conduct of this university. It is inappropriate, and quite frankly, beneath a student of your caliber. But Professor, Sakura tried to protest, her voice small. No buts, Sakura, Asuma interrupted, his voice booming. Consider this a formal reprimand. If I see you leaning on Mr. Uzumaki or pulling his hair again, I'll have you removed from the lecture hall. We are here to study society, not act like a scene from a bad soap opera. Asuma turned back to the board, muttering about the youth of today. Sakura sank into her chair, hiding behind her textbook, her pride completely shattered. Naruto, meanwhile, reached into his pocket and popped a lemon candy into his mouth. He leaned back, his eyes returning to the board. Through the corner of his eye, he saw Sakura's devastated expression and Ino's vibrating fury. Mission status, he thought as he crunched the candy, asterisk social chaos levels, critical. Escape plan, required, asterisk. The lecture hall had finally cleared out, leaving only the faint scent of chalk and the lingering tension of Sakura's public humiliation. Naruto stood up, slinging his bag over his shoulder with his usual robotic efficiency, ready to vanish into the shadows of the campus. He didn't even make it 3 steps. Oh, no you don't! Sakura's voice rang out, sounding like a tea kettle about to explode. Before Naruto could calculate an evasion maneuver, Sakura lunged. She didn't go for his arm this time, she went for the source of her frustration. Her fingers dived into his spiky blonde hair, gripping 2 handfuls with the strength of a professional wrestler. Harassment? Workplace misconduct? She shrieked, giving his head a sharp, rhythmic shake that made his vision blur. I was trying to be nice. I was trying to give you a social life, you ungrateful, golden-haired bucket of bolts. Sakura, Naruto muttered, his voice vibrating as she shook him. Your grip strength is biologically impressive. But this is inefficient. I'll show you inefficient, she yelled, giving his hair one last, powerful tug that forced him to look directly into her blazing emerald eyes. She didn't let go. She leaned in close, her face inches from his. Listen to me, Naruto. That gala isn't just a trivial waste of time. It's the event of the season. It's where the elite gather. If you want to blend in, if you want to be a normal student, you have to go. It's a golden opportunity for you to actually look like a human being. She let go of his hair, but only to grab his collar, pulling him down to her level. Her expression softened, a mix of genuine pleading and lingering irritation. And besides, I really want to go with you. I've spent my whole life being the smart girl in the front row. For once, I want to walk into a room with the guy everyone is talking about. Please. Just give me this one night. Naruto stared at her. He saw the genuine flicker of vulnerability behind her anger. He also realized that if he said no again, she might actually tear his scalp off, which would definitely compromise his handsome student cover. He let out a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the entire agency. Fine. One night. One suit. 0 hair pulling. Sakura froze. Her eyes went wide, and a smile so bright it could have powered the city's grid broke across her face. Really? You mean it? I've already processed the confirmation, Naruto said, smoothing back his disheveled hair with a look of profound annoyance. Now, please release my clothing before you ruin the fibers. Yes. Sakura screamed, punching the air before suddenly throwing her arms around his neck in a crushing hug. You won't regret it, Naruto. We're going to be the most stylish pair there. I'm going to find you the best tuxedo in the city. I'll find my own clothes, Naruto muttered into her shoulder, feeling a strange, uncomfortable warmth in his chest that he couldn't quite categorize as a tactical threat. The evening of the Founders' Gala had arrived, but Naruto's apartment felt more like a pre-mission briefing room than a dressing suite. The air was thick with the scent of gun oil and the sharp, crisp smell of a brand new designer tuxedo laid out across the bed. Naruto stood in front of the full-length mirror, struggling with his bow tie. His movements were jagged, his frustration mounting with every failed knot. He was used to tactical vests and combat boots, garments designed for utility. This tuxedo, with its silk lapels and restrictive fit, felt like a velvet trap. You know, for a man who can defuse a high-pressure explosive in under 60 seconds, you're remarkably bad at neckwear. Naruto didn't turn around. He didn't have to. He could see the reflection of Kakashi Hatake leaning casually against the doorframe of his bedroom. The silver-haired handler was dressed in his usual effortless style, flipping through a pocket-sized copy of his favorite romance novel. Congratulations are in order, Naruto, Kakashi said, a playful eye crinkling above his mask. You've made more progress in a week than some agents make in a year. You've successfully infiltrated the social elite, neutralized the Kiba threat, and somehow secured a date with the university's top medical student. It's impressive. It's a nightmare, Naruto growled, finally yanking the bow tie loose in a fit of pique. I'm an operative, Kakashi. Not a mannequin. I'm going to a party with a girl who pulls my hair and expects me to dance. This is the most humiliating mission of my career. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Kakashi chuckled, stepping forward to swat Naruto's hands away and expertly tie the bow for him. You look like $1 million. Or at least like a very expensive weapon wrapped in silk. And besides, think of the rewards. After a long night of dancing, who knows? Maybe you and Sakura can find some private time. You know, explore the nighttime parameters of your relationship in a nice, comfortable bed. Naruto blinked, looking at Kakashi through the mirror with a look of pure, clinical confusion. A bed? Why would we do that? If we're tired, we should sleep in our own respective quarters for maximum recovery. What exactly would we be doing in a bed together at a party? Kakashi paused, his hand frozen on Naruto's collar. He let out a long, weary sigh that seemed to vibrate with the weight of Naruto's sheer innocence. Naruto, you're a genius at ballistics, but you're a total disaster at biology. In a bed? With a beautiful girl? You're supposed to be making connections, not calculating sleep cycles. You really are far too innocent for your own good. I am not innocent, Naruto snapped, though his ears turned a slight shade of pink. I just don't see how horizontal proximity helps the mission. It's an inefficient use of energy. Kakashi shook his head, patting Naruto's shoulder with a mix of pity and amusement. Just try to enjoy yourself. But his voice suddenly dropped, the playfulness evaporating instantly. Stay sharp. My sources say there's a high probability of a dust courier making a handoff at this gala. The board of directors' desks left a vacuum, and someone is going to try to fill it tonight. I'll be watching the feeds, but you're my eyes on the ground. Naruto's posture shifted. The irritation vanished, replaced by the cold, calculated focus of a hunter. He checked the concealed holster tucked into the small of his back, ensuring the suppressed pistol was invisible beneath the jacket. I'm ready, Naruto said, his voice flat and lethal. Good, Kakashi said, his lazy demeanor returning. Go be a hero, Naruto. And for heaven's sake, if Sakura tries to kiss you, don't put her in a headlock. It's bad for the mission. Naruto didn't reply. He grabbed his keys, adjusted his cuffs, and walked out of the apartment, looking like the perfect gentleman, and the most dangerous man in the city. The evening air was crisp, scented with the promise of high society drama and expensive floral arrangements. Naruto pulled up to the curb outside Sakura's apartment complex, the engine of his vehicle emitting a low, predatory purr that commanded the attention of every passerby. The agency hadn't held back. Parked at the curb was a custom-engineered matte black Zenith Spectre, a car that looked less like a luxury vehicle and more like a stealth fighter jet on wheels. Its carbon fiber body shimmered under the streetlights, and the deep tint of the windows hid the sophisticated surveillance tech packed into the dashboard. Naruto sat behind the wheel, his hands encased in thin leather driving gloves. He adjusted his rearview mirror, the silk lapels of his tuxedo catching the faint glow of the instrument panel. He looked like the personification of lethal elegance. The main doors of the building swung open, and Sakura stepped out. She was breathtaking. She wore a floor-length, shimmering emerald gown that hugged her curves before flaring slightly at the hem, mirroring the color of her eyes. Her pink hair was styled in soft, sophisticated waves, and a thin silver necklace rested against her collarbone. She looked like a vision of modern royalty. As she approached the car, her jaw dropped. She slid into the passenger seat, the smell of high-end leather mixing with her sweet perfume. "Naruto!" she gasped, her eyes wide as she ran her hand over the brushed aluminum trim of the dashboard. "I can't believe this. Is this actually yours? This car, it looks like it belongs to a billionaire or a secret agent." And she turned to him, her breath catching. "You look absolutely handsome. Like, ruin my life handsome." Naruto didn't look at her, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "It's a functional transport. It gets us from point A to point B with maximum security." "Oh, stop being so clinical for 5 seconds." Sakura laughed, her heart racing. In a moment of genuine affection, she reached out, her fingers soft and warm as she placed her hand against his cheek. His skin was pale and smooth, looking almost ethereal in the dim light of the cabin. "You're actually human, Naruto. You don't have to be a statue all the time." The moment the warmth of her palm touched his face, Naruto's body tensed. With a swift, mechanical motion, he reached up and caught her wrist, firmly but gently removing her hand from his face and placing it back in her own lap. "Keep your hands inside the safety perimeter of your seat, Sakura," he said, his voice as cold and flat as a frozen lake. "Distractions during high-speed transit increase the probability of an accident by 15%. Sakura's romantic glow vanished instantly, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated annoyance. She crossed her arms over her chest, huffing so loudly it nearly drowned out the engine. "You are such an idiot!" she snapped, glaring at the side of his head. "You absolute, unromantic, robotic brick! I'm wearing a dress that cost me 3 months of savings, I look the best I've ever looked, and you're worried about safety perimeters and probability of accidents." She muttered a string of colorful curses under her breath, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past. "I swear, if a bomb went off, you'd probably just check your watch to see if it was on schedule. You have the emotional range of a toaster, Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto didn't respond. He simply shifted the car into gear, the Zenith Spectre leaping forward with a silent, powerful surge. As Sakura continued to fume beside him, he kept his eyes on the road, though he caught a glimpse of her in the reflection of the window. "Mission status," he thought, his grip on the steering wheel tightening just a fraction. Target is agitated. Emotional variables are fluctuating. Proceeding to destination with extreme caution. The grand ballroom of the Konoha Plaza was a sea of crystal chandeliers, flowing champagne, and the rhythmic hum of a live orchestra. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and expensive cologne. It was the kind of event where reputations were made or destroyed in a single dance. The heavy oak doors swung open, and the room fell into a sudden, expectant hush. Naruto stepped in, looking like a sculpted god in his midnight black tuxedo. His pale skin looked ethereal under the golden light, and his cold, blue eyes scanned the room with the precision of a hawk. Beside him, Sakura walked with her head held high, her hand gripping his arm with a territorial pride. She looked radiant in her emerald gown, but her expression was one of pure, unbridled arrogance. She knew she was walking in with the most sought-after man on campus. Naruto, however, looked like he was contemplating the fastest way to trigger the fire alarm. Every time Sakura leaned in to whisper something romantic, he stiffened, his jaw set in a line of profound irritation. He didn't look like a man on a date. He looked like a prisoner of war being paraded through a hostile city. Across the ballroom, perched on a velvet lounge chair, Ino Yamanaka watched them with eyes like sharpened sapphires. She was a vision of lethal beauty in a floor-length, backless lavender silk dress that clung to her every curve. Her long blonde hair was swept to one side, exposing the elegant line of her neck. She took a slow, deliberate sip from her crystal flute, the champagne sparkling as much as the fire in her gaze. "Look at her," Ino thought, her grip tightening on her glass until the stem groaned. Sakura thinks she's won. She thinks she can just parade him around like a trophy. She watched as Naruto ignored another one of Sakura's flirtatious gestures. A small, wicked smile touched Ino's lips. He's bored. He's miserable. He needs a real distraction. "Ino? You look wow. You look incredible." Kiba Inuzuka stepped into her line of sight. He was dressed in a sharp, dark suit, though he still managed to look slightly wild, his hair messy and his grin predatory. He looked at Ino with a hunger he couldn't hide, his eyes lingering on the exposed skin of her back. The orchestra is playing a waltz, Kiba said, offering his hand with a confident smirk. How about a dance, Ino? Let's show everyone who really owns this floor. Ino looked at Kiba's hand, then flicked her eyes toward Naruto. If he sees me in the arms of someone else, if he sees me laughing and moving with Kiba, he'll realize what he's missing, she reasoned. Asterisk, a man like that doesn't want what's easy. He wants what's being taken by someone else. He'll be jealous. He'll have to be. Asterisk. Ino turned her gaze back to Kiba, her expression shifting into a mask of sultry, irresistible charm. She let out a soft, melodic laugh that carried across the nearby tables. A dance? She purred, sliding her hand into his with a provocative grace. I think that's exactly what I need, Kiba. You're the only one here who seems to know how to treat a lady. Kiba's face lit up with a look of pure, ecstatic triumph. He led her toward the center of the dance floor, feeling like he had just won the lottery. Ino leaned in close to him, her perfume swirling around them, but her eyes remained fixed on the blonde man across the room. Watch me, Naruto, she thought, her smile widening into something dangerous. Watch what you're losing. The orchestra transitioned into a slow, sultry tango, the violins crying out with a dramatic intensity that matched the tension in the room. Kiba pulled Ino onto the floor, his movements aggressive and devoid of any ballroom grace. He didn't lead her so much as he claimed her. His hand, heavy and sweaty, clamped firmly onto the small of her exposed back, his fingers digging into the silk of her lavender dress. He pulled her flush against him, his eyes dark with a crude, primal hunger. He wasn't looking at her face. He was shamelessly scanning her body, his breath hot against her neck as he leaned in far too close. You're the hottest thing in this room, Ino, Kiba growled, his hand sliding lower than was remotely appropriate for a public gala, his grip tightening as if to mark his territory. Forget that transfer student. He doesn't know how to handle a girl like you. I do. Ino forced a seductive smile, though every fiber of her being wanted to recoil from his touch. She tossed her head back, laughing loudly enough for the sound to carry across the hall, her eyes darting toward the corner where Naruto and Sakura stood. Now, she thought, her heart racing. Asterisk, look at me. See how this animal is touching me. Come over here and stop him. Show me that you care. Asterisk. She waited for the flash of anger in those blue eyes. She waited for Naruto to drop his cold mask and storm across the floor to claim her. But as the crowd parted for a moment, she saw him. Naruto wasn't looking at her. He wasn't even looking at the dance floor. He was leaning against a marble pillar, his head bowed, his thumbs moving with lightning-fast, mechanical precision. A faint, electronic bleep-bloop sound drifted from his hands. He was holding his high-tech smartphone horizontally, his face illuminated by the flickering glow of a mobile game. He was currently navigating a complex stealth level in a retro-style platformer, his focus so absolute that the entire gala might as well have been on another planet. Beside him, Sakura was leaning against the same pillar, watching Ino's desperate performance with a look of pure, enlightened amusement. She saw Ino's theatrical laughter and Kiba's wandering hands, and then she looked at Naruto, who just muttered, "The frame rate on this level is suboptimal," as he cleared a boss fight. Sakura let out a peal of genuine, mocking laughter. She knew exactly what Ino was trying to do, and seeing it fail so spectacularly was better than any champagne. The realization hit Ino like a physical blow. She was being pawed at by a dog like Kiba, humiliating herself for a man who was currently more interested in a high score than her existence. Her seductive mask shattered instantly. The rage that boiled up inside her was volcanic. Get your filthy hands off me! Ino shrieked, her voice cutting through the orchestral music like a serrated blade. She didn't just pull away, she delivered a sharp, stinging slap across Kiba's face that echoed through the ballroom. Before he could even register the shock, she shoved him back with such force that he stumbled into a waiter, sending a tray of crystal flutes crashing to the floor. You're a disgusting, lecherous pig, Kiba! She screamed, her face flushed with a terrifying, aristocratic fury. She turned to the two massive security guards standing near the entrance. You! Get this animal out of here! He's harassing the guests. I want him banned from this campus and this plaza immediately. Kiba, stunned and humiliated, tried to protest, but the guards, recognizing the daughter of the Yamanaka Empire, wasted no time. They grabbed him by the arms, lifting him off his feet as they dragged him toward the service exit, while the entire elite of the city watched in stunned silence. Ino stood in the center of the floor, her chest heaving, her lavender dress shimmering with her heavy breaths. She looked toward Naruto one last time. He hadn't even looked up. Level 32 complete, Naruto whispered to himself, his thumbs never stopping. The gala's grand buffet was a masterpiece of culinary art, but Naruto had ignored the caviar and the smoked salmon. Instead, he had found a mountain of gourmet dark chocolate truffles. He was eating them with a mechanical, relentless efficiency. His face, usually a mask of stoic perfection, was now a disaster zone. Smears of rich, dark chocolate covered his lips, a smudge was on his chin, and a bit even decorated the tip of his nose. He looked like a very handsome toddler who had been left alone in a candy factory. Sakura stood beside him, handed him a napkin which he ignored. She giggled, leaning into his space. I didn't know the great, cold Naruto Uzumaki had such a massive sweet tooth. You love that stuff, don't you? Naruto swallowed a whole truffle, his voice muffled by cocoa. It is high-density glucose. Efficient for brain function. It's none of your business. Really? And here I thought you didn't even want to come tonight, she teased, stepping closer until her shoulder brushed his. You look kind of cute when you're a mess. Across the room, Ino had seen enough. She had watched the massage incident, the basketball game, and the library humiliation. This was her moment to reclaim her throne. She adjusted her lavender silk dress, ensuring every curve was accentuated, and began a slow, sultry walk toward the buffet. She moved with a rhythmic sway of her hips, a predatory smile on her lips. She arrived like a goddess descending from Olympus, ignoring Sakura entirely. She leaned in toward Naruto, twirling a lock of blonde hair. You've had enough sugar, don't you think? Ino purred, her voice a low, vibrating silk. Why don't you try something more stimulating? What do you say to a dance with me? I'm the best dancer in this room, the most beautiful girl in this university, and frankly, I think you've spent enough time with the help. Sakura's face turned a violent shade of red. The help? You overgrown sunflower. Ino ignored her, performing a slow, graceful turn in front of Naruto to show off the backless design of her dress. She stopped, facing him, and provocatively placed both hands just beneath her bust, pushing slightly to emphasize her figure. So, Naruto? What do you say? Don't you want to touch something better than a chocolate bar? Naruto, whose eyes were still glazed over from the sugar rush, finally looked up. He blinked at her, his chocolate-smeared face looking completely vacant. Actually, he muttered, I was looking for something to clean this. Ino's heart soared. He's going to reach for me, she thought. He's finally going to touch me. What is it, Naruto? Anything you want, she whispered, leaning closer. Naruto didn't reach for her hand. He didn't reach for her waist. Instead, he reached down and grabbed the edge of her floor-length lavender silk skirt. What are you doing? Ino gasped, her breath hitching. Is this some kind of bold move? Without a word, Naruto gathered a large handful of the expensive silk and lifted it. He didn't just lift it, he yanked it upward to his face level. Because the dress was form-fitting, the sudden pull hoisted the fabric high up her legs, nearly exposing the lace of her modest undergarments to the entire ballroom. Schlop. Naruto proceeded to use the fine, imported silk of Ino's designer dress as a giant, glorified napkin. He wiped his mouth vigorously, then scrubbed the chocolate off his chin and nose, leaving massive, dark brown streaks across the delicate lavender fabric. There, Naruto said, releasing the dress. It fell back into place, now looking like a muddy rag. That's much better. Thank you for the assistance. The ballroom went deathly silent. Then, a single snort broke the tension. Sakura was doubled over, clutching her stomach, her laughter echoing off the chandeliers. He used your dress as a bib. Sakura shrieked, tears streaming down her face. The elite guests, the professors, and even the waiters couldn't hold it back. A wave of thunderous laughter swept through the hall. Ino stood there, her legs still trembling from the sudden exposure, staring down at the brown, sticky smears across her midsection. My dress! Ino screamed, her voice reaching a frequency that could shatter glass. This is a $5,000 custom piece. You wiped your face on me. She looked around at the laughing crowd, her face burning with a humiliation so deep it was almost physical. She let out a final, frustrated sob, gathered her ruined skirts, and bolted for the exit, her heels clattering as she ran to find a place to hide. Naruto simply turned back to the buffet and picked up another chocolate truffle. The texture of that silk was actually quite absorbent, he remarked to a still laughing Sakura. Mission efficiency remains high. Sakura wiped a tear from her eye, looking at him with a mix of horror and adoration. Naruto, you are truly the most dangerous man I have ever met. The music shifted once more, the orchestra swelling into a slow, sweeping waltz that felt like a dream captured in sound. Sakura, recovered from her fit of laughter, turned to Naruto. Her eyes were soft, reflecting the golden glow of the chandeliers. Naruto, she said, her voice dropping to a gentle plea. The night is almost over. You've eaten your weight in chocolate and ruined Ino's social life. Please just one dance. With me. Naruto took a step back, his shoulders tensing. The mission is nearing its conclusion. Physical exertion in a crowded space is a tactical liability. It's not a mission. It's a dance. Sakura snapped, though her smile remained. Before he could calculate an exit strategy, she lunged forward, grabbing his hand and dragging him toward the center of the hardwood floor. The crowd parted as they reached the middle. Naruto stood like a pillar of salt, his arms stiff at his sides. You're doing it wrong, Sakura whispered, moving closer until the scent of her perfume filled his senses. Follow my lead. First, you have to place your hand on my waist. Naruto hesitated, then reached out. Because he was more accustomed to grappling opponents than ballroom etiquette, his hand didn't land on her side. Instead, he placed his palm firmly and heavily against the soft, rounded curve of her rear, his grip tight enough to bunch the emerald silk of her gown. Naruto! Sakura hissed, her face turning a violent shade of crimson as she felt the heat of his hand. Not there. That's not your waist. Why? Naruto asked, his voice deadpan but genuinely curious. The surface area is much softer here. Your anatomy is surprisingly smooth. Is this a defect in the training? It's not a defect, you idiot. It's my butt. Sakura growled, grabbing his hand and forcefully shoving it several inches higher to the side of her torso. Put it here. On the waist. Do you know anything about being a gentleman? I know how to blend in, Naruto muttered. But your waist is less padded. It seems less efficient for stability. Sakura let out an exasperated sigh and began to move. Just follow my feet. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, OUCH. Naruto's heavy dress shoe came down squarely on Sakura's toes. He didn't have the rhythmic grace of a dancer. He moved with the precision of a soldier, which meant he was constantly overcompensating for the music. 1, 2, asterisk crunch asterisk. Sorry, Naruto said, though his face remained a mask of stone. The tempo is irregular. It's not the tempo, it's you. Sakura winced, her eyes watering as he stepped on her foot for the fourth time. But she didn't let go. She pulled him closer, forcing him to stay in the rhythm, enduring the pain because, for the first time, she felt like she was actually breaking through his armor. As the music reached its crescendo and slowly faded, Sakura didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned forward, burying her face in his chest and wrapping her arms tightly around his neck in a deep, emotional embrace. Thank you, Naruto, she whispered. Even if you're a terrible dancer, thank you for being here. But as she held him, she felt something terrifying. Naruto began to tremble. It wasn't a small shiver, his entire frame started to vibrate with a violent, jagged tension. His breath came in short, shallow gasps, and his eyes, usually so cold and controlled, were wide and unfocused, darting around as if he were being attacked by an invisible enemy. To Naruto, the physical contact was a sensory overload. Years of isolation, of being treated as a tool of the state, and the psychological trauma of his touchless training had left him with a profound aversion to intimacy. The warmth of Sakura's body felt like a forest fire, the pressure of her arms felt like chains. Naruto? Sakura whispered, pulling back slightly to look at him. She saw the sweat breaking out on his pale forehead, the way his hands were balled into white-knuckled fists. What's wrong? Why are you shaking like that? Are you sick? Naruto couldn't answer. His mind was screaming for distance, for a cold room and a silent mission. He looked at her, his vision blurring, the lights of the gala turning into a distorted mess of gold and shadow. Too much, he rasped, his voice cracking for the first time since she had met him. Too much contact. He stumbled back, breaking her hold with a desperate strength. He didn't look back as he turned and bolted for the balcony, leaving Sakura standing alone in the middle of the floor, her heart sinking as she realized that the man she was falling for was carrying a darkness she couldn't even begin to understand. The music finally died down, replaced by a sudden, expectant silence that rippled through the grand ballroom. The house lights dimmed, and a single, pale spotlight cut through the dimness, focusing on the center of the raised mahogany stage. A tall, slender figure glided into the light. It was Orochimaru, the chancellor of the university. He was dressed in a sleek, charcoal gray suit that seemed to shimmer like snakeskin. His skin was unnaturally pale, and his long, dark hair fell straight over his shoulders, framing a face that held a permanent, chillingly polite smile. His golden, slit-pupil eyes scanned the room, lingering just a second too long on Naruto. Students, benefactors, and esteemed guests, Orochimaru's voice slithered through the sound system, smooth and cold. Tonight, we celebrate the foundation of our institution. But remember, a foundation is only as strong as the secrets buried beneath it. Excellence requires sacrifice and the courage to look into the dark. On the edge of the crowd, Sakura leaned heavily against Naruto's arm, her fingers tracing the silk of his sleeve. She wasn't listening to the speech. Her focus was entirely on the man beside her. Naruto, she whispered, her voice laced with a deep, maternal concern. Why was your body trembling like that during the dance? It felt like you were being electrocuted. You were freezing, yet you were sweating. Tell me the truth. Are you in pain? Naruto stood perfectly still, his eyes fixed on Orochimaru, but his mind was already rebuilding the walls she had almost breached. The shaking had subsided, replaced by a rigid, artificial calm. I don't know what you are talking about, Naruto replied, his voice a flat, emotionless drone. It was likely a physiological response to the lack of oxygen in a crowded room. My body was simply recalibrating. There is no truth to find, Sakura. It was a mechanical glitch. A glitch? Sakura stepped in front of him, forcing him to look at her. You aren't a machine, Naruto. People don't recalibrate. You look terrified. Please let me help you. As a medical student, I can. You can do nothing, Naruto interrupted, his gaze turning icy. The gala is concluding. I am leaving. I will escort you to your residence as promised. The mission the evening is over. He didn't wait for her response. He turned and began walking toward the exit, his stride long and purposeful. Sakura hurried after him, her emerald gown trailing behind her, her face a mask of frustration and growing obsession. She wanted to heal him, but she couldn't heal what she couldn't see. High above them, on the mezzanine balcony, Ino Yamanaka stood in the shadows. She had cleaned the chocolate from her skin, though her dress was still ruined. She watched them leave, her eyes narrowing as she processed the scene she had just witnessed. She had seen Naruto's tremors. She had seen the way he looked at the exit like it was a life raft. A mechanical glitch? Ino whispered to herself, a dark, intelligent light gleaming in her eyes. No. That wasn't a glitch. That was a crack in the armor. She reached into her small, beaded clutch and pulled out the electronic key fob for her high-end sports car. It chirped softly in her hand. Sakura is too emotional to see it, Ino muttered, a determined smirk crossing her lips. But I see you, Naruto. You're hiding something behind that cold face. A trauma? A secret? Whatever it is, it's the key to making you mine. She turned and headed for the private parking elevator. Tonight the dance doesn't end. It just changes location. She was going to follow him. She was going to see where the ghost lived, and she was going to find out exactly what made the most dangerous man on campus tremble in the arms of a girl. The matte black Zenith Spectre glided through the rain-slicked streets of the city like a silent predator. Inside the cabin, the only sound was the faint hum of the engine and the rhythmic clicking of the turn signal. Sakura sat in the passenger seat, her head leaning against the window, her eyes fixed on Naruto's profile. The tension from the ballroom had softened into a quiet, dreamy haze. This really was the best night of my life, Naruto, she whispered as they pulled up to the curb of her apartment building. Even with the chocolate, and the dancing and the chaos. It felt real. Naruto shifted the car into park. The objective was achieved. You attended the event. You are now home. Sakura let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. You just can't help yourself, can you? She unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned across the center console. Before he could retreat into his safety perimeter, she wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him into a firm, lingering hug. This time, Naruto didn't tremble. He froze, his body like a statue of ice, his breath held in his lungs. Sakura pulled back just an inch, looking into his startled blue eyes, and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to his pale cheek. You're a wonderful person, Naruto Uzumaki, she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. Even if you don't believe it yet. She climbed out of the car, waving one last time before disappearing behind the heavy glass doors of her building. Naruto watched the door close, his hand instinctively rising to touch the spot on his cheek where her lips had been. Illogical, he muttered, his voice raspy. He stepped out of the car for a moment, needing the cold night air to clear the sudden, suffocating warmth in his chest. As he adjusted his tuxedo jacket, he reached into his inner pocket to check his equipment. In his haste and the lingering psychological fog of the night, his fingers brushed against a small, laminated card. As he pulled his hand away to grip the car door, the card slipped out, fluttering silently to the wet pavement like a falling leaf. Naruto didn't hear it. He didn't feel it. He climbed back into the Spectre, the engine roared to life, and the car vanished into the darkness of the city. The street was silent for a heartbeat. Then, the sharp click-clack of designer heels echoed against the bricks. A hand, adorned with perfectly manicured lavender nails, reached down and plucked the card from the puddle. Ino Yamanaka stood under the pale glow of the streetlight, her hair damp from the mist, her eyes burning with a manic, triumphant light. She turned the card over in her fingers. It wasn't a student ID. The golden boss seal of the National Intelligence Agency shimmered under the light. Beneath the eagle crest, in bold, black lettering, were the words: Special Investigator, Naruto Uzumaki. Rank Class S Operative. Central Intelligence Command. Ino's breath hitched. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face, a smile that held both madness and a terrifying kind of adoration. She slowly brought the card to her face, her tongue darting out to lick her lower lip as she tasted the salt of the rain and the thrill of the hunt. Investigator Naruto, she whispered, her voice a low, vibrating purr that disappeared into the wind. So, my little ghost isn't a student at all. You're a hunter. She let out a soft, melodic laugh that chilled the night air, clutching the card against her chest as if it were a holy relic. And I've always loved a man with a dangerous secret, she murmured, her eyes fixed on the empty road where he had disappeared. You can run as fast as you want, my eternal love. But now I finally have the key to your cage. The matte black Zenith Spectre screeched to a halt under a rusted bridge, far from the polished marble of the university. Naruto practically fell out of the driver's seat, his legs barely holding his weight. He slumped against the cold metal of the car, his chest heaving. The silence of the industrial district was deafening, broken only by the frantic pounding of his own heart. He pulled out his encrypted phone with trembling fingers and dialed. Naruto? Is the target secured? Kakashi's voice was sharp, instantly sensing the shift in the atmosphere. I can't do it, Kakashi, Naruto rasped. His voice was broken, stripped of its usual mechanical coldness. It was the sound of a boy drowning. The contact when she hugged me, when she touched my face, I felt like I was losing air. My skin is crawling. I was trained to be a blade, Kakashi. Blades don't get held. They don't get kissed. On the other end of the line, the sound of the romance novel hitting the desk was audible. Kakashi's voice softened, losing its teasing edge. It became the voice of the only father figure Naruto had ever known. Deep breaths, Naruto. Listen to my voice, Kakashi said firmly. What you're feeling isn't a failure of the mission. It's the cost of being human. They took your childhood and gave you a rifle. They took your peace and gave you a badge. It's okay to be afraid of the warmth when you've lived your whole life in the snow. I felt weak, Naruto whispered, his eyes blurred with a rare, stinging moisture. You aren't weak. You're just waking up, Kakashi replied gently. Go home. Secure the perimeter. We'll talk about a reassessment tomorrow. You did good tonight, kid. Just breathe. The line went dead. Naruto leaned his head back against the car, closing his eyes as he tried to force the tremors to stop. He stood there for a long moment, the cold wind whipping his blonde hair. Snap. The sound of a heel clicking against a loose stone shattered the silence. Naruto's training took over instantly. The sadness evaporated, replaced by a lethal, predatory focus. He didn't turn, he listened. One shadow moving behind a concrete pillar 50 feet away. Light footsteps. Female. He vanished. In a blur of movement that defied human physics, he circled the pillar from the shadows. Before the intruder could even gasp, Naruto was behind them. His hand shot out, his fingers clamping like a vice around a slender, silk-covered throat, pinning the figure against the cold concrete. He stared into the face of his stalker, his blue eyes glowing with a terrifying, murderous light. Found you, a voice purred, completely unafraid. The moonlight shifted, revealing the pale, beautiful face of Ino Yamanaka. Despite the hand around her throat, she wasn't struggling. She looked at him with a gaze that was terrifyingly calm, obsessive and triumphant. She slowly raised her hand, brushing her fingers against Naruto's wrist, her touch light as a feather. Don't be so violent, handsome, she whispered, her lips curling into a dark, knowing smirk as she held up the gold-crusted identification card she had recovered from the street. Is that any way to treat a lady special investigator, Naruto? Naruto's grip tightened for a fraction of a second, his heart stopping. Or should I say, Ino leaned in closer, her breath hot against his ear as she ignored the danger of his hold. My secret little hero? The industrial silence of the bridge was shattered by a sound Naruto never expected, a soft, melodic hum. Ino didn't look like a woman being pinned against a wall by a lethal operative, she looked like a performer on center stage. She began to sway her hips slightly, Her eyes locked onto his shocked gaze as she started to sing in a low, teasing voice, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh, the little hero with the frozen stare, acting like a student without a single care. But the badge in the mud tells a different tale. Of a lying detective whose cover's gone pale. Liar, liar, Detective Naruto your secret's out, and nowhere to go. Naruto's hand didn't move from her throat, but his mind was racing. He forced a dry, condescending laugh, his voice returning to its sharp, professional edge. You're delusional, Ino. A song? You're hallucinating. I'm a student. You're just a girl who's had too much champagne and an overactive imagination. Ino's smirk widened, her eyes gleaming with a manic light. Hallucinating? Oh, my sweet, lying detective, I've never been more clear-headed in my life. If you're so sure, Naruto hissed, leaning closer until their foreheads almost touched, where's your evidence? In the world of law, songs don't hold up in court. You have nothing but a bruised ego because I didn't dance with you. Is that what you think? Ino whispered. You think I'm just a jilted girl? With a lightning-fast motion, she reached into the small slit of her sleeve and pulled out the gold-crested identification card. The moonlight hit the metal seal, making the words Special Investigator, Naruto Uzumaki glow like a beacon. Naruto's eyes widened to the size of saucers. The air left his lungs as if he'd been kicked in the chest. His hand instinctively released her throat as he lunged for the card, his fingers clawing the air to reclaim his identity. This is mine, he growled. But Ino was faster. With a triumphant, biting laugh, she snatched the card back and, before he could grab her wrists, she slid the cold, laminated badge deep into the plunging neckline of her lavender dress, tucking it firmly between her breasts. Naruto froze, his hand outstretched, stopping just inches from her chest. His face, usually pale, turned a deep, furious shade of red. Give it back. Now. Ino leaned back against the concrete pillar, arching her back provocatively to emphasize where the card was hidden. She looked down at his hand, then up at his eyes, a mocking, daring smile on her face. Come and get it, detective, she challenged, her voice a sultry, dangerous purr. She stepped forward, pressing her chest toward his hand, mocking his hesitation. What's the matter? You're a big, brave investigator, aren't you? Go ahead, reach in and take it. It's right here. She let out a sharp, piercing laugh as Naruto's hand trembled with rage and indecision. Oh, look at you, she taunted, her eyes dancing with delight. The most dangerous man on campus, paralyzed by a bit of silk and skin. You aren't nearly as bold as you look, are you, my little liar? Ino watched the visible rise and fall of his chest, her eyes tracking the vein throbbing in his temple. She was enjoying this far too much. Come on, detective, she urged, her voice dropping to a teasing whisper. The evidence is right here. Reach in and reclaim your honor. Or are you afraid of what you might find? Naruto's fingers twitched, his teeth gritting together so hard his jaw ached. Ino, you have no idea who you are dealing with. Give me that card before this situation becomes irreversible. Ino suddenly burst into a bright, sharp laugh, stepping even closer until the scent of her floral perfume overwhelmed him. Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. But do you know who I am? Because the moment your hand enters this dress, I'm going to scream. I'm going to scream so loud the entire district will hear me. She leaned in, her eyes glinting with a calculated malice. And imagine the headlines, Naruto. University hero and special investigator assaults heiress at midnight. I'm famous, I'm beautiful, and I'm a Yamanaka. The world will believe me before they even ask for your name. I'll ruin you. I'll ruin your reputation, and I'll drag your precious little police agency through the mud until there's nothing left but a scandal. Naruto's eyes narrowed, his body coiled like a spring. You're threatening the security of a national operation for a vendetta? Not a vendetta, Naruto, she corrected, her expression shifting from mocking to something far more intense. An opportunity. She reached up, her cool fingers framing his face, forcing him to look directly into her eyes. Her thumb traced the line of his lower lip, a gesture that sent a jolt of alarm through his system. But I'm a reasonable girl, she purred. I'm perfectly willing to keep your little secret. I'll bury that card, I'll forget I ever saw your badge, and I'll be the most loyal ally you've ever had. No scandals, no ruined careers. At what price? Naruto rasped, his voice barely a whisper. Ino pulled him down by his collar, her lips hovering just a fraction of an inch from his, her breath warm against his mouth. The distance between them vanished until they were sharing the same air. The price is simple, my little ghost, she whispered into the heat of the moment. You belong to me. Not the agency, not Sakura, and certainly not the law. From tonight on you are mine. She let the words hang in the air, a silken trap closing around the most dangerous man in the city. Naruto stared at her, caught between the instinct to flee and the terrifying realization that the diva had finally captured her prey. Ino's grip on Naruto's collar tightened, her eyes flashing with a possessive fire that bordered on the sadistic. She looked at him not as a person, but as a glittering prize she had finally cornered. The arrogance radiated off her in waves, thick and suffocating. Here are my terms, detective, she whispered, her voice sharp and demanding. From this second forward, you are mine. You will be my boyfriend in the eyes of the city. You will drive me everywhere in that ridiculous, expensive car I saw you in today. You will be at my beck and call, a shadow to my light. And most importantly, her expression soured into a mask of pure villainy. You will never look at, speak to, or protect that pink-haired mouse Sakura ever again. You belong in my world, not her pathetic little clinic. Naruto stared at her, his chest heaving as he struggled to process the sheer selfishness of her demands. What did I ever do to you? He rasped, his voice cracking with genuine bewilderment. I've done nothing but try to stay out of your way. Ino let out a harsh, jagged laugh that echoed off the concrete pillars. What did you do? You ignored me. You treated the most beautiful, most powerful girl on this campus like a common bystander. You let that hairy beast of a coach touch me. You wiped your face on my $5,000 dress. You humbled me in front of everyone, Naruto. No one treats Ino Yamanaka as an afterthought and gets away with it. She stepped even closer, her eyes scanning his face with a terrifying intensity. I don't care about your mission. I don't care about justice. I care about winning. And winning means having the most dangerous, most mysterious man in the city on my arm, broken and obedient. Naruto remained silent, his mind racing. He looked at the shadows, at the badge hidden against her skin, and at the calculating cruelty in her smile. He was trapped in a political and social cage he couldn't fight his way out of without destroying the mission. What's the matter, detective? Lost your tongue? Ino taunted, her ego swelling at his lack of response. She took his silence as a total surrender. I'll take your silence as a yes. After all, you don't really have a choice, do you? Before Naruto could utter a single word of protest, Ino surged forward. She didn't ask, she commanded. She grabbed the back of his head, her fingers tangling in his blonde hair, and crushed her lips against his in a forceful, possessive kiss. It wasn't an act of love, it was an act of colonization. She tasted like expensive lipstick and cold ambition. When she finally pulled back, she was breathless, a triumphant, wicked smirk plastered on her face. She smoothed down the front of her lavender dress, looking every bit the victorious villain. Our life together is going to be absolutely marvelous, my little investigator, she purred, her eyes dancing with a dark, selfish joy. Don't be late to pick me up tomorrow. I have a very long list of things for you to do. She turned on her heel, her laughter trailing behind her like a poisonous perfume as she walked toward her car, leaving Naruto standing in the dark, a prisoner of the very secret he had sworn to protect. The morning sun filtered through the silk curtains of the Yamanaka estate, casting a soft, golden glow over a room that looked more like a sanctuary of high fashion than a bedroom. Ino Yamanaka didn't just wake up, she emerged into the day with the triumphant energy of a conqueror. She sat up, stretching her slender arms toward the ceiling, a radiant, almost manic smile fixed on her face. For the first time in weeks, the frustration that had clouded her expression was gone, replaced by a terrifyingly bright spark of victory. She hummed the tune she had sung to Naruto under the bridge, the melody now sounding like a victory march. Bounding out of bed with uncharacteristic speed, she descended the grand marble staircase, her silk robe fluttering behind her. In the breakfast nook, her mother, a woman of refined grace and sharp intuition, was sipping tea while reviewing some floral arrangements for the family business. Ino practically flew into the room, throwing her arms around her mother's neck and planting a loud, enthusiastic kiss on her cheek. Good morning, Mother. Isn't it just a spectacular day? Ino chirped, spinning around the table before helping herself to a croissant. Her mother lowered her cup, blinking in surprise at her daughter's sudden burst of affection. Well, someone is certainly in high spirits. You look glowing, Ino. Did something happen at the gala last night? I heard there was a bit of drama with your dress. Ino let out a melodic, dismissive laugh. The dress was a sacrifice for a much greater cause, Mother. And yes, I am happy. Why wouldn't I be? I finally did it. The boy I told you about, the one who thought he could ignore me? He's officially mine. We're together now. Officially. Her mother smiled warmly, reaching out to pat Ino's hand. Oh, Ino, That's wonderful news. I was worried you were becoming a bit obsessed. I hope he's a good boy. Someone who treats you with the respect a Yamanaka deserves. Someone who won't exploit your status or leave you when things get difficult. Ino's eyes glinted with a dark, secret irony. She thought of the badge tucked away in her safe and the look of trapped fury on Naruto's face. Oh, he's more than good, mother, Ino purred, her voice dripping with a deceptive sweetness. He's incredibly respectful. He has the most disciplined mind I've ever encountered. And his future? It's brighter than anyone could possibly imagine. He's a specialist of sorts. I'm glad to hear it, her mother said, her interest piqued. What did you say his name was? I don't think you ever mentioned it. Naruto, Ino said, the name rolling off her tongue like a delicious secret. Naruto Uzumaki. Her mother paused, her brow furrowing slightly. She tilted her head, a look of distant recognition crossing her features. Naruto, that name sounds strangely familiar. I feel as though I've seen it on a guest list or perhaps in a government report, or was it the news? It's a very distinct name. Ino's smile didn't waver, though her grip on her napkin tightened. He's a transfer student, mother. You probably heard people talking about him at the university. He's quite the celebrity lately. She stood up, checking the diamond-encrusted watch on her wrist. Anyway, I have to go. I need to take a long, perfect shower and get dressed. My boyfriend is coming to pick me up in his very expensive, very fast car any minute now. I can't keep a man like him waiting. It might give him ideas about who's really in charge. As Ino sprinted back upstairs, her laughter echoing through the halls, her mother watched her go with a lingering sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had heard the name Naruto Uzumaki in a context that had nothing to do with university students, and everything to do with the dangerous shadows of the city. But upstairs, Ino was already turning on the water, her mind filled with images of Naruto's pale skin and the power she now held over the city's most dangerous ghost. Today is going to be perfect, she thought, stepping into the steam. And tomorrow will be even better. The morning light felt like an interrogation lamp to Naruto. He sat on the edge of his bed, his head buried in his hands, his tuxedo jacket from the night before crumpled on the floor like a defeated flag. The silence of the apartment was heavy with the weight of his failure. For a man trained to be invisible, being owned by a 19-year-old socialite was a humiliation worse than any physical wound. His encrypted phone buzzed on the nightstand. He didn't even have to look to know who it was. I heard the news, Kakashi's voice crackled through the speaker, followed immediately by a fit of uncontrollable, wheezing laughter. A Class S operative, outmaneuvered by a girl in a lavender dress. Naruto, this is gold. I'm actually crying. She's absolutely insane, a literal genius of chaos. Shut up, Kakashi! Naruto snarled, his voice raw with frustration. She has my ID. She's threatening to blow my cover and the entire agency's reputation. This isn't a joke, you perverted old man. Oh, it's a little bit of a joke, Kakashi wheezed, finally catching his breath. But look on the bright side. She's gorgeous, she's wealthy, and her father is Inoichi Yamanaka. You know the name, right? He's a titan in the tech and security sector. He actually divorced her mother and left them when Ino was only 15, a messy, public affair. There's intel suggesting Inoichi might be linked to the dust distribution network. Having his daughter obsessed with you? That's not a disaster, Naruto. That's a backdoor into the Yamanaka Empire. I want out, Naruto whispered, his eyes closing in pain. I'll take a demotion. Send me to a border outpost. I can't be her boyfriend. It's degrading. Too late for that, kid, Kakashi chuckled, his tone turning slightly more serious but still tinged with amusement. You've been compromised by affection. Enjoy your date. And Naruto? Try not to step on her feet this time. Good luck. The line went dead. Naruto threw the phone onto the bed, letting out a groan of pure despair. He had faced assassins and terrorists, but the thought of Ino Yamanaka made his stomach churn with a different kind of dread. Suddenly, the phone buzzed again. A private number. He answered with a weary, "What now?" "Hello, my little investigator." Ino's voice sang through the line, vibrant and dripping with honeyed malice. Naruto stiffened. "How did you get this number? This is a secure, encrypted line." "It's written right on the back of your card, you dummy." She laughed, the sound sharp and triumphant. "Did you think the agency wouldn't put a contact number for lost property? You really are a bit slow for a spy, aren't you?" Naruto bit his tongue so hard he tasted copper. "What do you want, Ino?" "I want my ride," she chirped. "I did a little digging. That car you were driving? A Zenith Spectre, latest model, hasn't even hit the commercial market yet. I want to see what it can do. Pick me up at my estate in 30 minutes. If you're late, I might just start leaking photos of a certain handsome blonde badge holder to the school blog. Listen. Bye-bye, darling, she interrupted. And remember, she began to sing in that mocking, melodic tone that was already burned into his brain. Liar, liar, Detective Naruto, the liar's heart is starting to show. Asterisk. The call ended with a playful click. Naruto stared at the wall, his soul feeling like it had been put through a paper shredder. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and walked toward the door, looking less like a secret agent and more like a man walking toward a very stylish, very expensive gallows. The matte black Zenith Spectre tore through the winding, manicured roads of the city's most exclusive district. Naruto's knuckles were white against the leather steering wheel. His face was a mask of cold, concentrated misery. Every kilometer he drove toward the Yamanaka estate felt like another link in a chain being wrapped around his neck. He pulled up to the main gates, which glided open with a silent, expensive mechanical whir. The Yamanaka mansion loomed ahead, a sprawling, glass sandstone fortress of wealth. It was unnecessarily large, boasting multiple tiers of balconies, lush vertical gardens, and a driveway paved with imported marble. To Naruto, it didn't look like a home. It looked like the lair of a very stylish, very arrogant dragon. He brought the car to a halt in front of the grand entrance. He didn't get out. He sat there, staring straight ahead, praying for a tactical distraction, a sudden earthquake, or a national emergency, anything to save him from what was coming. The massive oak doors of the mansion swung open. Ino stepped out, looking like a high-fashion predator. She was dressed in a sleek, designer outfit that cost more than a mid-range sedan, her blonde hair swaying perfectly with every confident stride. She didn't wait for him to open the door. She walked straight to the passenger side, pulled it open, and slid into the leather seat. Before Naruto could even offer a formal greeting, she leaned over, her expensive floral perfume filling the cabin, and planted a firm, possessive kiss on his cheek. "Good morning, my little investigator," she purred, her eyes dancing with a dark, triumphant light. "How was your night? Did you dream of me, or were you too busy worrying about your secret life?" "It was a disaster," Naruto replied, his voice flat and vibrating with repressed anger. "I spent the night calculating how many years of prison you'd face for blackmailing a federal officer." Ino let out a sharp, melodic laugh that echoed in the confined space. "Oh, how adorable! You're still trying to use the law against me." "My night, however, was absolutely marvelous. I haven't slept that well in years." "Enough games, Ino," Naruto said, turning to look at her, his eyes cold. "Give me back my identification card. Now. You've had your fun, and you've made your point. Give it to me." Ino's smirk widened, turning into something truly wicked. She slowly reached into the neckline of her top, her fingers disappearing for a moment before she pulled the corner of the gold-crested badge into view, just enough to taunt him, before tucking it back deep against her skin. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice dripping with sadistic pleasure. "It belongs to me now. It's my favorite accessory. But if you want it so badly, detective, you know where it is." She leaned back, arching her chest toward him, her expression a dare. "Go ahead. Reach in. Take what's yours. If you have the courage to touch me, that is." Naruto's breath hitched. His hand twitched on the gear shift. For a split second, the cold, logical operative in him considered the maneuver. He moved his hand toward her, his fingers inches away from the silk of her clothes. He could feel the heat radiating from her, and his heart began to hammer against his ribs with a violent, erratic rhythm. But as his fingers neared her skin, the psychological wall slammed down. The tremors began to return to his wrist. He looked at her smug, arrogant face, the face of a girl who knew she had him in a psychological cage, and he recoiled, snatching his hand back as if he had been burned. Ino burst into a peal of mocking laughter, the sound sharp and biting. "Oh, Naruto! You're so easy to break. Look at you, trembling like a leaf over a little bit of skin." She reached out and patted his cheek condescendingly. "Don't worry, my sweet little liar. You'll get to touch me when you're my husband. I've already decided. But for now," she gestured toward the driveway with a queenly wave of her hand, "you have a job to do. Drive me to the university, investigator. I want everyone to see my new chauffeur." As Naruto shifted the car into gear, his jaw set in a line of pure fury, Ino leaned back and began to hum. Then, her voice rose into that taunting, rhythmic song that had become Naruto's personal anthem of failure. Liar, liar, Detective Naruto, drive me fast, drive me slow. The badge is hidden where you can't go, oh, my lying hero, put on a show. The Zenith Spectre roared down the driveway, carrying the city's most dangerous man and his beautiful, selfish jailer into the morning light. The Zenith Spectre roared into the university parking lot, its matte black finish absorbing the morning light like a black hole. As the engine died with a final, menacing growl, every head in the courtyard turned. Students stopped mid-conversation, coffee cups frozen halfway to their lips. Naruto sat behind the wheel for a moment, his eyes closed. He looked like a man preparing to walk into a gale of shards. Ino didn't wait. She stepped out of the car with the grace of a panther, her designer heels clicking sharply against the pavement. She didn't head for the entrance. Instead, she walked around to the driver's side and waited. When Naruto finally emerged, looking stiff and lethal in his fitted black shirt, she didn't give him an inch of breathing room. She lunged forward, locking her arm firmly through his. Her fingers dug into his bicep, asserting her ownership in front of the entire student body. "Smile, Naruto," she whispered, her voice a poisonous honey. "You're with the queen now. Try to look like you're enjoying the privilege." "This is a violation of every tactical protocol I've ever learned," Naruto muttered, his jaw so tight it looked like it might snap. As they walked toward the main hall, a wave of whispers followed them like a physical wake. "Is that Ino? With the transfer student? I thought she hated him. Look at how she's holding him." "There goes my chance," one boy whispered, his heart visibly breaking as he watched the campus diva lean her head affectionately against the blonde investigator's shoulder. Ino basked in the attention. She looked at the crowd of heartbroken boys with a cold, triumphant smirk. She didn't just want Naruto, she wanted everyone to know that she had conquered the unconquerable. "Look at them, Naruto," Ino said loudly, her voice carrying across the quad. "They're all so jealous. They know that a man like you, so strong, so mysterious, so dedicated, could only ever belong to someone like me. Right, darling?" "Stop talking," Naruto hissed, his eyes scanning the perimeter, desperately looking for a way to vanish. "You're drawing too much attention. This is a university, not a runway." "Oh, hush," Ino laughed, her voice ringing out with an arrogant, selfish delight. She squeezed his arm even tighter, pulling him closer until there was no space between them. "You're a hero, aren't you? You should be used to the spotlight. Besides, I love the way they look at us. It feels right. Like I finally found the perfect accessory to match my soul." Naruto felt a cold shiver of disgust. He wasn't a partner to her, he was a trophy, a high-stakes prize she had won through blackmail and manipulation. As they entered the crowded hallway, Ino began calling out to her friends, her voice dripping with vanity. "Sorry, boys. This one is taken. I've officially retired from the market. My investigator here has very strict rules about who I spend my time with." "I never said that," Naruto growled, his face burning with a mix of rage and humiliation. "You didn't have to," Ino purred, looking up at him with those sharp, predatory eyes. "Your silence said everything I needed to hear." She led him through the throngs of shocked students, her head held high, looking every bit the beautiful, villainous queen of the campus, while Naruto walked beside her, a silent, captured ghost in her golden cage. The atmosphere in the hallway shifted from curious whispers to a suffocating, icy silence as a familiar figure blocked their path. Sakura stood near the lockers, her books clutched so tightly to her chest that the knuckles of her hands were bone white. Her emerald eyes, which had been filled with a soft hope since the night of the gala, were now wide with a mixture of shock and burgeoning fury. She stared at the sight of Ino's fingers interlaced with Naruto's, her territorial grip on his arm looking like a golden shackle. "Naruto?" Sakura's voice was low, trembling with a dangerous edge. What is this? What are you doing with that girl? After last night, after everything we talked about, why are you standing there like her pet?" Naruto opened his mouth, his throat feeling like it was filled with dry sand. "Sakura, actually, Ino interrupted, her voice a sharp, polished blade. She stepped forward, pulling Naruto's arm flush against her side, her head tilting back with an insufferable, regal arrogance. "We didn't want the news to break so suddenly, but since you're so observant, Sakura, Naruto and I are together. We're officially a couple." Sakura felt the floor beneath her tilt. "What? That's impossible. You hated him. You called him a robot. You were screaming about your dress just a few hours ago." Ino let out a melodic, cruel laugh, her eyes sweeping over Sakura with pure disdain. "Oh, darling, that was just a lover's spat. After the gala, we went for a very long drive. We sat under the stars, we talked, and we realized we understand each other on a level you couldn't possibly comprehend. He realized that a man of his stature needs a queen, not a nurse in training." Ino leaned her head on Naruto's shoulder, her eyes shimmering with a wicked, selfish triumph. "He's mine now, Sakura. We decided it last night. It was quite a passionate realization, wasn't it, Naruto? Sakura ignored Ino, her gaze burning into Naruto's. She stepped closer, her eyes searching his for any sign of the man who had trembled in her arms on the dance floor. Naruto, tell me she's lying. Tell me this is some kind of sick joke. There is no way you would choose her after everything. Is this true? Naruto felt Ino's hand tighten on his arm, her nails digging into his skin through his shirt. He felt the cold pressure of the hidden badge against his side, the weight of his secret, his career, and the agency's reputation all hanging by a single thread. He looked at Sakura, seeing the heartbreak starting to shatter her expression, and then he felt Ino's predatory, expectant gaze burning into the side of his face. He took a slow, agonizing breath, his heart feeling like a lead weight. Yes, Naruto rasped, his voice sounding dead even to his own ears. It's true, Sakura. We're together. Sakura stepped back as if he had slapped her, her face turning a ghostly pale. Ino's smirk widened into a grin of pure, villainous ecstasy. She had won. She had taken the ghost, and in doing so, she had broken the only person who truly cared for him. You heard the man, Ino purred, her voice dripping with venomous satisfaction. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a class to attend. Come along, Naruto. The lecture hall was dimly lit, the professors droned about historical economics serving as a dull backdrop to the psychological warfare occurring in the back row. Naruto sat perfectly upright, his spine a rigid line of suppressed fury. He was staring at the chalkboard with such intensity it looked like he was trying to set it on fire with his mind. Beside him, Ino had completely ignored the existence of her notebook. She had pulled her chair so close to his that their thighs were pressed together, a deliberate intrusion of his personal space that made Naruto's skin itch with a desperate need to escape. Stop moving, Ino whispered, her voice a silky, commanding thread. She reached over, her long, manicured fingers tracing the outline of Naruto's jaw before resting heavily on his shoulder. You look so tense, my little investigator. Relax. You're with me now. I am trying to process the lecture, Naruto rasped, his eyes never wavering from the front of the room. Your proximity is creating a significant sensory distraction. Ino let out a low, wicked giggle, leaning in so close that her blonde hair brushed against his ear. Good. I want to be a distraction. In fact, I've already planned out our entire week. Since you're mine now, we have a lot to do to fix your image. She pulled out a sleek, gold-trimmed planner and began tapping it with a pen. Tonight, you're taking me to that new French bistro on the waterfront. I've already made the reservation under your name. Tomorrow, we're going to the tailor. That suit you wore to the gala was passable, but I want you in custom charcoal silk, something that screams power. Naruto's hand tightened on his pen until the plastic groaned. I have operational duties, Ino. I cannot spend my evenings at bistros and tailors. Oh, but you can, Ino purred, her eyes shimmering with a dark, selfish delight. She leaned even closer, her voice dropping to a hiss that only he could hear. Because if you don't, I might just get bored. And when I get bored, I start playing with my jewelry like that shiny gold badge I have tucked away. You wouldn't want me to lose it in the university's lost and found, would you? Naruto's jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. He felt like a caged wolf being poked with a silver rod. Every word she spoke was a reminder of his own powerlessness, a mockery of his years of elite training. And this weekend, Ino continued, her eyes dancing with villainous joy, we're going to my family's private beach house. You'll be my personal bodyguard, and my very attentive boyfriend. You'll carry my bags, you'll rub my shoulders, and you'll look at me like I'm the only girl in the world. Especially when Sakura is around. You are a monster, Naruto muttered, his voice cold and hollow. I'm a Yamanaka, Ino corrected him, a sharp, arrogant smile stretching across her face. We don't ask for what we want, Naruto. We take it. And right now I've taken you. She reached down, her hand sliding over his knee, her grip possessive and unyielding. Naruto closed his eyes, a wave of profound exhaustion and anger washing over him. He was the city's most dangerous operative, a man who had faced death without blinking, yet here he was, being dictated to by a girl who treated his soul like a fashion accessory. Smile for me, detective, Ino whispered, her eyes fixed on his miserable face. The world is watching, and I want them to see how much you love being mine. Naruto didn't smile. He simply sat there, a silent, captured ghost, while Ino began to hum that mocking song again, the sound of her victory echoing in the hollow silence of his heart. The lecture ended, but for Naruto, the sentence was just beginning. Ino gripped his wrist with her manicured fingers and led him toward the university gardens, a secluded area filled with blooming cherry blossoms and carved stone benches. She shoved him down onto a bench, ignoring his stiff resistance, and sat so close that there wasn't a breath of air between them. With a triumphant flourish, she pulled an elegant, insulated lunchbox from her designer bag. "I can't stand that cafeteria swill," she remarked, tossing her hair back with an air of supreme elitism. "It's beneath me. My mother's personal chef prepared this, and you should be honored to share it. Only the best for my investigator." She opened the box to reveal intricately prepared sushi and golden tamagoyaki. She picked up a piece with her chopsticks and brought it to Naruto's lips. "Open up, Naruto. Say ah." "I am not hungry," Naruto said, his voice flat and robotic, his head pulling back. "I have a scheduled nutritional intake later this evening." "I wasn't asking," Ino hissed, her eyes narrowing with a sharp, domineering glint. She leaned forward aggressively, pressing her body against his arm to pin him in place. As she strained to force the food toward his mouth, her low-cut top shifted, and her ample chest was pressed firmly against his shoulder and chest, a suffocating heat that made Naruto's heart race with involuntary panic. Naruto looked down at the physical contact, his face pale and cold. "Ino," he muttered, "you really should consider a more rigorous cardiovascular routine. Your chest is excessively large. In tactical terms, it's a massive obstruction to your center of gravity. You should try to lose that weight. It looks inefficient." Ino froze, her face turning a bright, indignant red. She slammed the chopsticks down. "You idiot! You absolute, uncultured block of wood!" she shrieked, her voice trembling with ego-bruised fury. "This isn't weight or sagging like it would be on a lazy boy. This is a woman's body. For a girl, this is a sign of health, maturity, and supreme attractiveness. The larger a girl is here, the more powerful her charm is. It's nature's way of showing I'm a queen." Naruto blinked, his blue eyes vacant and analytical. "Nature seems to have a very poor sense of aerodynamics, then. It seems like a biological defect." Ino stared at him, stunned by his sheer, cold innocence and his total lack of a filter. Suddenly, she burst into a fit of laughter, the sound sharp and crystalline. "You really are a freak, aren't you? A beautiful, dangerous freak." She lunged forward, not giving him time to react, and pressed a firm, chocolate-scented kiss to his lips. "Just shut up and eat, you little liar," she whispered against his mouth, forcing the food into his hand. In the shadows of a nearby willow tree, Sakura stood frozen. She watched the way Ino pressed herself against Naruto, saw the kiss, and heard the laughter. Her hands balled into fists, her nails drawing blood from her palms. The jealousy was a physical ache in her throat, a burning fire that made her want to scream. She had seen Naruto's coldness as a mystery to be solved. Ino was treating it like a game she had already won. "Eat," Ino commanded, her voice ringing with selfish delight as she watched Naruto reluctantly chew. "You're going to need your strength for the rest of our date." The gardens were quiet, but for Naruto, the mission never stopped. Despite being anchored to the bench by Ino's overwhelming presence, his eyes remained sharp, scanning the perimeter for any signs of the dust distribution network he was supposed to be tracking. The weight of his service weapon, a sleek, customized tactical pistol, was a familiar comfort against his side, concealed beneath his dark jacket. Or so he thought. Ino, bored with his silence and fueled by a mischievous, dominant streak, noticed the slight bulge under his arm. With the predatory grace of a thief and the nimbleness of a girl who had spent years handling delicate flower arrangements, she moved. While Naruto was focused on a suspicious figure near the campus gates, her hand slipped under his jacket with lightning speed. Click. Before Naruto's elite reflexes could even twitch, Ino had unholstered the weapon. She didn't treat it like a lethal instrument, she treated it like a glittering accessory. "Oh, what's this?" Ino purred, standing up and stepping away from him. She held the pistol by its grip, twirling it around her finger with terrifying carelessness. "It's so heavy and cold. Does this match my outfit, detective? I feel like a dangerous femme fatale." Naruto's blood turned to ice. His heart skipped a beat as he realized his primary weapon was now in the hands of a civilian who was currently using it to strike vogue poses. "Ino," Naruto hissed, his voice trembling with a mixture of panic and fury. "Put that down. Immediately. That is not a toy. It is a high-caliber firearm with a hair trigger. Give it to me." "Make me," Ino taunted, stepping back as he lunged for it. She held the gun high above her head, striking a dramatic pose with her hand on her hip, pouting her lips as if she were on a magazine cover. "Look at me. I look like a secret agent's boss, don't I? I think I'll keep this. It's much more me than that silly badge." Naruto lunged again, but Ino was used to the dance. She dodged his grasp, spinning around a cherry blossom tree. "Oops. Too slow, Mr. Investigator." "Ino, if that goes off, you could kill someone. You're going to expose my entire cover." Naruto was practically pleading now, his face pale as he tried to corner her without making a scene. Every time he got close, she would swing the barrel around to point it at the sky, or worse, tuck it under her chin to see how it looked in her compact mirror. "You look so flustered when you're losing control," Ino laughed, her voice ringing with selfish, villainous joy. She held the gun sideways, mimicking a pose from an old spy movie, her finger dangerously close to the trigger. "Maybe if you tell me I'm the most beautiful girl you've ever seen, I'll consider giving it back. Or maybe I'll just keep it in my purse. A girl can never be too safe, right?" Naruto stood frozen, his hands outstretched, his mind screaming. He was a Class S operative, a man who had disarmed international terrorists, yet here he was, failing miserably to retrieve his weapon from a girl who was currently trying to see if the matte black finish of the pistol matched her lavender nail polish. "You are a nightmare," Naruto rasped, his eyes darting around to see if anyone was watching. "I'm your favorite nightmare," Ino corrected, blowing a kiss over the barrel of the gun. "Now stand still. I want to see if I can use the reflection in the slide to fix my lipstick." The morning sun bled through the blinds of Naruto's apartment, but he didn't move to open them. He sat at his kitchen table, staring into a cup of black coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. He looked like a man who had been through a war, but the wounds weren't from shrapnel or blades, they were psychological. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were shadowed with a deep, existential exhaustion. The front door clicked open, Kakashi never bothered with knocking, and the silver-haired mentor strolled in, humming a jaunty tune. He stopped dead in his tracks the moment he saw Naruto. For a long beat, there was silence. Then, a slow, muffled snort escaped Kakashi's mask, escalating into a full-blown, shoulder-shaking fit of laughter. "What?" Naruto snapped, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "Naruto," Kakashi wheezed, pointing a finger at the young operative. "I knew she was a handful, but I didn't realize she was marking her territory like a lioness. You've got a bright pink lipstick smudge on your jaw, and oh, is that a faint one on your neck too? Class S operative, indeed." Naruto's hand flew to his neck, his face turning a shade of red that rivaled the lipstick. He grabbed a napkin and began scrubbing his skin with a violence that suggested he was trying to remove a layer of flesh. "It's not territory, Kakashi. It's harassment. She doesn't understand the concept of personal space or international security protocols." "You look different," Kakashi remarked, his tone shifting to one of amused observation. "In all the years I've trained you, I've never seen you this expressive. Usually, you're about as lively as a block of granite. This girl is actually bringing out a personality in you, even if that personality is just pure rage." "I hate this mission," Naruto muttered, slamming the napkin onto the table. "I hate that you put me on this. I'm a weapon, not a socialite's toy. I should be in the field, not being force-fed gourmet sushi and threatened with my own badge." Kakashi leaned against the counter, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Come on, Naruto. Admit it. You're starting to like the attention. She's stunning, she's brilliant in her own twisted way, and, let's be honest, she has some truly magnificent curves. That dress at the gala? Those curves are world-class." Naruto scoffed, his eyes turning cold and analytical again. "Curves? It's a biological inefficiency. Her chest is so disproportionate it probably causes chronic back pain and ruins her center of gravity during high-speed movement. It's just sagging weight. It's a defect." Kakashi stared at him for a moment, then let out a bark of laughter, slapping his knee. "You absolute idiot! Sagging weight? Biological defect? Naruto, if any other man heard you say that, they'd have you committed to an asylum. That's not a defect, that's the gold standard of feminine beauty. You really are hopeless." Naruto turned away, his jaw set. "I don't care about beauty. I care about results." "Good," Kakashi said, his voice suddenly dropping its playful edge as he reached into his vest and pulled out a digital folder. "Because the honeymoon is over for an hour. We've had a breakthrough. One of the dust suppliers has finally blinked. His name is Hanzo. He's a middleman with a reputation for being as slippery as an eel." Naruto's posture shifted instantly. The frustrated boy vanished, and the predator returned. "Location?" "He's meeting a buyer tonight at a high-end sushi restaurant called the Hidden Leaf. It's a private deal, very quiet. He's looking to offload a major shipment. Your objective is simple: confirm the buyer, neutralize Hanzo, and secure the data drive he carries." Naruto stood up, his eyes sharp and lethal. The weight of the last few days seemed to lift the moment he had a target. Finally. A real mission. "Just one thing," Kakashi added, a mischievous glint returning to his eye as Naruto headed for his gear. "Make sure you wash your face before you go. It's hard to be a silent assassin when you're wearing lustful lavender on your neck." Naruto flipped him off without looking back, but as he reached for his tactical vest, his hand brushed against the empty spot where his badge used to be. The mission was real, but the shadow of Ino Yamanaka was still looming over him, and he knew that before the night was over, she would find a way to make it complicated. The university halls were buzzing, but for Naruto, the air felt like a tightening noose. He walked with a stiff, military gait, his mind already running tactical simulations for the hit on Hanzo. He needed silence. He needed a clean perimeter. He needed to be a ghost. But ghosts don't have girlfriends who wear 4-inch heels. Ino suddenly appeared at his side, slipping her arm through his with practiced ease. She didn't just walk, she commanded the space around her. Naruto, you're just in time. I've made a decision for tonight, and it's non-negotiable. Naruto didn't look at her. I have personal obligations this evening. I cannot attend any social functions. Oh, hush with the obligations talk, Ino chirped, her eyes shining with a selfish, sparkling light. I've booked a private table at the Hidden Leaf. It's the most exclusive sushi spot in the city. You have to be someone to even get through the door, and luckily for you, you're with me. I'm introducing you to my inner circle, my wealthiest, most influential friends. They've been dying to see the man who finally tamed the campus ghost. Naruto froze mid-step. The name of the restaurant hit him like a physical blow. The Hidden Leaf. The exact location of Hanzo's deal. The exact coordinates of his kill zone. No, Naruto said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming dangerously sharp. We are not going there. Choose another location. Or better yet, we can postpone until tomorrow. Tomorrow is much more efficient for a social gathering. Ino stopped, turning to face him, her expression shifting from cheerful to domineering in a heartbeat. She stepped into his personal space, her eyes narrowing into two sharp slits of sapphire. Tomorrow? I don't do tomorrow, Naruto. I want it today. And I'm not asking